I will call to order the regular meeting of the North Dakota Ethics Commission, Wednesday, May 20th. And note for the record that all commissioners are present with two of our colleagues on Teams. So I will call us to order. Any agenda items, additions, or changes? Yeah.
We'll print a few.
Okay. Any changes or corrections, additions to the agenda? Hearing none, we'll move on to the third item on our agenda, public comment period.
Yeah, Chair Lindquist, there was no submissions for public comment period.
Okay. Item 4, approval of the meeting minutes from April 24, 26, regular meeting. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to review them, and we'll entertain a motion.
Move that they be accepted.
Motion by Ron.
I'll second.
Second by Pam. Any corrections or discussion?
Madam Chair, I have one. Item number 5, operations report, letter E. There is a acronym in there as RIF. Just a suggestion that we update that to RFI. And then the following sentence, or excuse me, continuing on in that sentence, we say to inform NDIT how they would solve the solution. I maybe just say provide a solution. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Okay. Any other changes? With those amendments. So we have a motion on the floor with some edits to the minutes of April 24th, 2006. Voice. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Minutes have been approved. Moving on to item 5, operations report, and we will turn it over to Rebecca.
We'll start the operations report with the budget update. So I'm going to hand it over to Ms. Mose.
So this is the budget through the end of April of 2026 for the 25-27 biennium. Our current appropriation is sitting at $1,384,716, and this does include the 50% intern funding from OMB, which we can see here. Expenditures in April totaled $55,664. Bringing our total expenditures for the biennium to $501,403, leaving a remaining budget of $883,313 for the biennium. The projected expenditures through the end of the biennium are down below here, $878,998. Leaving us with an estimated ending balance of $4,315. As always, this number will continue to fluctuate as we move through the biennium. Some things to note above here, you'll notice that the IT costs were higher than what they normally are, and that's due to the public priority survey analysis that we did. And then IT costs will continue to be a little bit higher in the coming months due to the additional interns. Professional fees and services and outside counsel budget from the litigation pool has remained the same as the previous month. And that is what I have.
Thanks, Addie. I just want to, can you go back up to that IT cost?
Yep.
So the original projection that NDEC gave us was a little over $4,000 for the cost to do that data analysis. That did come under budget. Do you remember the exact number? I want to say it was 20.
Like maybe 2,400 or so.
Yep. So that did come in quite a bit under budget of what they gave us as an estimate at the beginning of the project. So that's good. Good news. That's the only addition that I have. Any questions on the budget? Hearing none, I will go on to the filings and case management report. So Addie, if you can pull up attachment 3. So for April, you'll notice we got quite a few meeting notices that came into the commission. Give it a second here, I apologize. Quite a few meeting notices that came into the commission. We also received 3 new complaints in the month of April, and then we did have a significant number of conflicts of interest forms come in as well. You will also notice when we look at complaint activity, we have a new section that was as of this last month that we added, and that is closed complaints. So these are the complaints that go past initial review and are closed at a subsequent stage. And so that is now at 1 based on the commission's actions from April. So the commission dismissed 3 complaints in April. So we're holding steady around somewhere between 39 to 41 complaints. It seems as though the complaints that are coming in we're able to keep up with, and kind of knocking 1 or 2 bigger, older complaints out per month is kind of a trend or the capacity that the commission has at this time. Any questions on that report? Hearing none, let's move on to the next section, which is the education and outreach update. So this is really, I want to provide the commission just with an overview of what the staff did in May. On May 5th specifically, the commission held a webinar on the complaint rule amendments that went into place or were effective earlier this year. There was approximately 145 people that initially attended. Individuals can now go and watch that online. It's also available on our YouTube channel, which is linked through our website. Additionally, the materials from the webinar were sent out to participants. The slide deck was sent out to participants after the webinar. Additionally, we did something new this time that we haven't been able to do, that we haven't had the capacity to do before, and that is Victoria helped us with putting together a post webinar survey that went out. Addie and I are meeting with Victoria tomorrow to go over that, see what we learned from that, see what the response rate was, and go from there if we got any good feedback that we can then implement. So that is a new aspect of that webinar, but we did have fairly decent attendance, I think, for a 1-hour lunch, and it was approved for continuing legal education as well. Any questions on that particular event? Hearing none, I'm going to move on to, and I have Victoria on the line. If you guys have any, or I've asked her to join us and she's graciously joined us. Sorry, I did not phrase that appropriately. But what we are looking at next is how we roll out information on the travel disclosure rules. We want to make sure that this is consistent and digestible information, particularly for public officials who are going to be filing or need to file these forms. We don't just want to say, hey, there's a new rule in effect, good luck. That is not what we want to do. We want to make sure that we increase or give everybody the tools to comply with the rule. And so this is the rollout that Victoria, Addie, and I have briefly talked about, and we've started putting into place. So there is going to be 2 separate kind of training sessions for this rules rollout. One is going to start as a general webinar for anybody to attend. And anybody can attend either of these, but this one is not geared towards a specific group of people. It is going to cover why the travel rules exist, what the filing looks like, what the actual rule says. We're going to walk through the rule. This is going to be really a general information webinar. And then the next one is going to be a training session for filers. And this is going to be specifically to walk them through the form and how the process for filing these forms will happen online. There will be a landing page on the Ethics Commission's website. And so this landing page, you'll be able to go there and get all of the information that you need about the travel disclosure rules, including a quick guide that will, and it will be quick, meaning a few pages, okay, to help filers with common questions. We've already started to get common questions regarding the rule. And so we've started compiling those. And Victoria is going to help us draft that to put it in non-legal terms, or at least I hope non-legal terms. The other creative solution that Victoria had, and I think is a great idea, is to create what we are calling virtual office hours. So have an online availability for either myself or Logan during specifically July and August, which is when people are going to be filing these for the first time. We may roll this into the fall if we think that that would be helpful to filers to assist with common questions. This may also be just a filing question. How do I do this? What box do I click? That sort of thing. So then we can have Addie there to assist those. The other hopeful, and I'm going to say hopeful on this, is because I'm not sure about capacity on our time to do this, but this is something that Victoria has offered to help with, is to create short 30 to 45-second videos on the travel disclosure rule. And these are going to be hopefully with your consent done by the commissioners so that we can share those on social media to get short information out about the travel rules. The last thing is to create a QR code on a card for travelers. So essentially that they can take this with, and when they are done traveling for whatever reason, if it's reportable travel, then they can scan the QR code on their phone. It will take them to the Ethics Commission's landing page on the travel disclosure rules, and they'll be able to fill out the form that way. This will go out, this information is going to go out to public officials and the general public through an initial news release saying this is what we're going to be doing and here are the links. And then there's going to be several targeted emails afterward. But thankfully, Victoria is going to be helping us on that rollout. That is going to be one of our primary focuses during the month of June. And if you guys have any additional ideas or suggestions, I would love to hear those. And I think Victoria would as well, just to get more perspectives in on the discussion. We can also take any questions too.
I just have a couple thoughts to add. I do think it's important that we have a landing page where it's readily apparent right away when they access our website. So you've got that covered. You also covered, I would call it, make sure we're talking to the layperson, that it's not just we're citing code, follow this piece of code without any explanation there. The last one, maybe for Victoria and Rebecca, is it might be helpful if we were able to give them some examples of what's okay and what's not okay, whether those are real world or just made up scenarios, and work those into whether it's a video or the quick guide, something like that. But thanks, Victoria, for being willing to help us out.
You are welcome. Happy to be here.
So Commissioner Hubrights, I think the idea of real world scenarios is a really good idea. Those are some of the questions that we've already been getting is, this is what I do, or this is how we currently handle something. Is that in line with the rule? And so those are great questions. And those have been good conversations thus far. So I think including some of those in this would be really helpful.
I'm curious about, this is really good. No objection, this is really good, but I'm curious why, were we this thoughtful for those other rules we did? Or is it lessons learned? Kind of a combination of both or everything, right? And I know travel disclosure rules are different from our other rules, but I don't think we were as thoughtful and as deliberative as we're being now for this rollout.
Chair Lindquist, I don't want to throw shade on anything that happened in the past, but I do believe the last substantive rules that were rolled out were the conflict of interest rules. And to my knowledge, when I first started talking to public officials about it, they were unaware of it. So I think that there was a perhaps communication gap that we are trying to prevent from happening again. I also think we just have more resources. So keep in mind, the last time we had a substantive rule rolled out, the commission had 1 staff member. So now we have 3 plus a few interns, and then we also have the benefit of Victoria. So I think it demonstrates that when you have more capacity, you're able to get more information out there and be more transparent about the process.
Very well stated. And just to jog people's memories, that when that the conflict of interest was, or was that? Yeah,
in 2022.
22. So it's been a while. And for me, this is really good lessons learned. And we're trying to be better at what we do and how we roll this out to make sure people have good information about what it is and how it's supposed to work or going to work. So thank you. And thank you, Victoria. We appreciate your help.
Victoria, do you have anything to add on that, or you good?
I think you covered everything we outlined in our meeting, very concisely. And, I don't think we missed anything that we, in that brainstorming work session that we did a few weeks ago. I'm excited to help.
I'm really looking forward to Victoria's expertise in taking our legal language and turning it into normal people conversational language, because I know that is certainly not a strength of mine. Moving on to the human resources update. As you can see, I'm actually going to jump first from our law clerk position to the second point in that is that we have our summer legal and business interns on board. Our business interns started earlier in May, helping us with the minutes for today, kind of starting to transition as Addie goes on leave. But our legal interns started with us in the office on May 18th, which is just a few days ago. And I also want to confirm to the commission that OMB has now officially approved the funding to cover 50% of the interns' salaries. I was given the impression that NDEC has still not fixed the problem that was preventing this, but that they ensured that ours was prioritized. So I really appreciated OMB's communication and professionalism on that issue. So we are really looking forward to having our interns with us this summer. I will give you a first few days report, is that having currently 6 people, 7 people in the office does feel a bit tight with the space that we have. I think we are utilizing our space well, but if we give our interns a review at the end and they say that they felt like they were in a sardine can all summer, I would understand why they felt that way. So we will do it. I said we are going to give each other grace, and we will work through any space constraints that we have. Any questions on that topic? Hearing none, I will move on to the law clerk position. At the February meeting, the commission approved the posting of a 1-year law clerk position to help out with legal research. This is effectively to help our general counsel conduct legal research and in the drafting of ethics rules to support the commission's substantive ethics rule making, which is included in the commission's strategic plan. This position was posted and it did close last week. There are 3 applicants for the position. I have in here Commissioner Hubrights, but it's actually going to be Commissioner Sharp who's going to be helping with the interviews in the coming days. I will not be participating in the interview process. And so there we go. Any questions on that?
What is the reason you don't want to participate, Rebecca?
Yep, Ron. So I am, it's not a conflict of interest necessarily, but it is an instance where I know one of the applicants. And so I feel it is in the best interest and in an equitable thing to have one of the commissioners step in for me in that position.
Good, good. Yeah, I understand. Will Logan be there?
Yes, Logan will be there.
Yeah, I think that's good. We should have a staff person there.
Rebecca, you said 3 applicants. Is that 3 total or 3 that qualified out of a larger pool?
That's actually a good question. Those are the 3 that met the qualifications that were forwarded to me. So I do think there were only 3, but to be honest, that's not the question that I asked. So, but they did have to meet certain qualifications. So that's why we got those. But all the candidates are qualified. Moving on to the case management system. Just as a reminder, there's really not much of an update, which is unfortunate. We were supposed to have a meeting with NDIT last week, and that was canceled. And so I will be providing much more information on this in June as we are working through it. But we are providing information to NDIT and really in this kind of waiting game. But I have communicated that we need to be moving forward on this. And I'm hopeful that that helps things move forward in a quicker pace. With that, I believe that summarizes the operations report for the month of May.
Good work, good business, because we have good staff. Any other comments or questions to Rebecca? All right, moving on. Item number 6 on our agenda. And it's my farewell message. And I did submit a 3-page document for the record. And I just want to publicly acknowledge and thank my colleagues and our staff. It's been exhilarating. It's been frustrating. It's been interesting. My 7 years serving on the North Dakota Ethics Commission. In my comments, I wanted to acknowledge the initial cohort, my colleagues who were all men. And I found it interesting that I got selected. I think there were 70 or 72 applicants back in 18 or 19 when the first cohort were seated. And I think out of that 72, I think there was 25% of those were female. I like data. I'm an educator in that. And I was really maybe shocked even that I got picked. You know, as a female, I'm assuming, I don't know, maybe not. And then I also want to publicly acknowledge that I am a Spirit Lake Dakota tribal member. I'm an educator. I'm a lifelong North Dakotan. I truly believe in public service, and I had been encouraged to apply. And at the time I applied, I was president of Chandeska-Chistana Community College, one of the 5 tribal colleges in North Dakota. And on my tribe, my reservation against Spirit Lake and Fortant, North Dakota. And taking on these kinds of roles is not, I truly believe my colleagues, we do this in a good way and with good hearts and good intentions. And particularly because of how the Ethics Commission was formed by the people of North Dakota. And so this is serious work and important work. And I found it interesting that, okay, I'm the only woman. I like diversity. I think there has to be that gender balance. But I also just appreciate how the first cohort meld. I have high regard for that initial cohort and my colleagues, Dave Anderson, Ron Goodman, Ward Kozer, Paul Richard, very different backgrounds as our sitting commissioners now also. Very different people, different backgrounds from across North Dakota. But what I learned was North Dakota is so good in our friendships, in our relationships, and trying to build allyship and partnerships. And even though we were very different, the common ground that I discovered initially was we believed in this work. We had a commonality relative to understanding of ethics and what ethics are. And bringing that to the fold of serving as a commissioner in that. And part of that are having the values of respect, mutual respect, integrity for work and what we do, and then speaking the truth. The other interesting point when we began was, fall of 19, spring of 20. And guess what hit? The pandemic and COVID. And we had to pivot quickly to working virtually and working online in establishing the commission. I believe it was done well. I believe it was done gracefully and thoughtfully. Our meetings are public, so you can go back and look at all the records of what we've done and what we've accomplished. In my 3-page statement to you all, I highlight the report we published last year, the annual report, which is the work of the commission. I just wanted to update some of that information and data because I think it's important, but go back and look at that annual report. We'll be putting out you all will be putting out another annual report this year. So you're going to have a good basis to do that. But I think so many things we accomplished. Website, a hotline. We've hired 2 executive directors. Rebecca was our second, and she's been with us since 22. We implemented rules with public input, complaint rules, lobbyist gift rules, quasi-judicial bias rules, conflict of interest rules, and just recently the travel disclosure rules, which we're now rolling out and implementing. If I looked at this correctly, and on our website, you can look at this too, but we've issued, I think, 13 advisory opinions. Rebecca and Logan and Addie helped update the data on complaints, and you kind of got a preview on that case, on the case management summary, but we've closed 79% of our cases since 2019. In raw numbers, that's 148 of 187, and the data I have is that right now we're pending 39 cases, but there's 2 that it kind of goes back and forth, and it's like, and I want to point out that this is significant because we don't have enough staff. We have excellent staff, but yeah, and we do our best relative to the timing. And so we try to pay attention, as is on our agenda here in a little bit, relative to the older cases and where we're at with those with those cases. We recently seated 3 new commissioners, and hopefully we did a okay job of onboarding our 3 new commissioners to where we were. I'm really excited to hear today about the public survey that has now been analyzed with some help from NDIT and state HR office in that, because I looked at the findings. I'm like, whoa, this is really interesting. And I find it interesting because the over 1,000 responses we got on that survey really continue, from my perspective, to showcase why we need a North Dakota Ethics Commission, why this work is important, what the people want to see relative to what we're doing and where we're at. The other thing I want to point out, and again, my statement is public now since it's on our agenda and that, but we did all this work with challenges and within limitations. And I think one of the most significant things is this whole thing about ethics and ethics body and oversight. And having oversight over officials who we are trying to work with, who we want, because we all want good things. And hopefully this continues in a good way relative to affecting ethics rules, whatever that is, however these bodies want to implement that. But there's some work to be done, because there is an inherent conflict in the Ethics Commission overseeing elected officials. And we know that, we understand that. But I truly believe we did our best relative to having good relationships and trying to understand each other in the work and finding that common ground relative to going forward. And hopefully, I do believe that's going to continue. I've already mentioned, and I've said publicly in our meetings, that we just don't have enough staff. I personally believe that we need at least double. So from 3 FTEs to 6 FTEs, just minimum. We've talked about this. We've got data. Our new commissioner, Huberts, did a beautiful job in doing some analysis of other state ethics commissions and that, and organizational chart and all that kind of thing. So we've got the information, we've got the data, the justification about why. And hopefully the legislative body will hear us, or you, when you present in January. But it's so important. We also, in the annual report, we made some recommendations that still need to be considered. 3 simple from my perspective. We need to require email addresses for lobbyist registration, state leasing subject to procurement protocols based on a case, and then improvements to our rulemaking process, which I think we're always cognizant of as a body. And so we have amended some of our rules over the past few years. And that's, I guess, just good business. It's a good way to work. You know, nothing is set in stone. Our work is still somewhat new. And yet, oh, wait, when we passed the rule or adopted the rule, it was good intent with good research at that moment in time, but oh, something comes up later. Oh, wait, or a gray area or something. To me, that's always what rules, they're made to be amended, to be changed, to have flexibility because of circumstances and that. You know, and yeah, the aspect about being punitive, sometimes in our discussions, I want to point out, because I was the one that made the motion relative to assessing fines and that, and I think I was the one that made the motion on the $5,000 one on the penalty. And we backstepped as we knew we would, but at the same time, it was to get people's attention. Pay attention to this. This is important. Help us to set those guidelines, those parameters. And part of it, from my perspective, in setting those kinds of things, is prevention. So people know what are the rules, what are the, but hey, if you know what that is and you don't follow it, there has to be consequences, and hopefully that's not what happens, but we know that is what happens. And so we did our best. I want to close my farewell with, I took some stuff out of the, what is it, that Campaign Legal Center document, who did a great, who did a great analysis for all ethics commissions in this country about threat assessments. They analyzed state, including North Dakota last year. It's a good report. I think it's on our website, but they have some good things in there, and I'm paraphrasing, but I'm stepping down. You're going to be seating at least one new commissioner. You're going to have to elect a new chair. You're getting ready for legislative session, which to me is just a couple days away. But staff and commissioner readiness, which is what we've all been working on, especially this past year with the seating of 3 new commissioners, and that really be aware of the trends. Look at that analysis from that threat assessment. Look at what's going on in North Dakota from broader eyes, from a higher lens. What's going on in general? What do we need to pay attention to? I think most significant in looking at the trends is to really pay attention to that analysis of our survey, what the people are saying, and what we need to do. We all need to be more cognizant of noise. And when I say noise, and I happily acknowledge I'm an elder and of a different generation, but we need to pay attention to social media and how people use social media to publish half-truths, incorrect information, to make sure our information, your information, is out there in a good way, in a public way, and that it's accurate, that it's factual, that it's what this body has agreed to. We need to be better at engaging our allies and partners, which to me are the citizens of North Dakota and the badass grandmas. People who believe and understand what this work is about and who can help us to be advocates. Pay attention to those kinds of things is strategic and preparation. And I truly believe my colleagues on the commission, you all have that. You bring such important voices and perspectives to our discussions and to that point of view that I do believe we find common ground in how to bring that work forward. And doing all that, I really do want to acknowledge Rebecca Binstock, Logan Carpenter, Natty, because they exemplify our work. They are truly professional people, highly intelligent and skilled people. And all this work of the commission has got to continue. We need to continue to demonstrate our reliability in this work, our consistency in this work, and what we believe in. Because this is about accountability and transparency. And we all along have been doing our best to fulfill our mission toward that, to improve the confidence of the citizens of North Dakota in the work of the state. And I believe we've done that. And I've been most proud to be part of this. And I've been blessed because I have learned. And that's what life is all about. Learning from each other, making things better, making it better for all in a good way. So in my world where I come from as a Dakota-wea, as a Dakota woman, we say mitaki owasi, means we are all related, and pidamia, thank you. All right. Having said my say, we do have a lot of business. We will continue on with ongoing business, item 7 on our agenda.
Cindy,
Yes,
let me quickly make a statement regarding your leaving. I'm not going to talk about your competence because you've certainly displayed that in every one of our meetings. But I do want to talk about you personally. I think that Cindy has been my best friend on this commission from the beginning. Well, not from the beginning. Maybe it took a while for us to get to know each other. I mean, all commissioners. But she has been my best friend on the commission, and I am certainly going to miss her. She's just such a, I shouldn't say this, I suppose, but I'm going to. She's such a sweetheart. uh, and I really appreciate uh, her ability to deal with everybody and to bring the temperature down when that's necessary, to sometimes raise it up. She's not afraid to express herself, and I wish you all the best in Denver. So that's what I have to say there.
thank you, Judge Goodman. That means a lot to me. And I wish you wouldn't have brought up Denver because really I'm leaving North Dakota for that mountain state. And I'm like, I love our state. I'm like, I'm going to that place with mountains. But it's exciting. It's an exciting change. So thank you so much. All right, we are going to move forward on our agenda. And I hopefully believe that this is a good segue to talk about the survey that we just completed conducting here the last couple of months and the analysis that is now available. So Rebecca?
Thank you, Chair Lindquist. Give me just a moment to pop on the meeting here so I can share.
And while Rebecca is bringing this information up, she mentioned to me that we're having some issues relative to this being available to the public,
Yep.
which we kind of don't understand. With one of the state agencies, and hopefully we'll get it resolved because our intent was, yeah, most all our work is public. So, but we are going to have a discussion and an overview of it.
So I need to apologize. The IT on my computer is not doing quite what I want it to. So you are going to get a screen with, I'm going to minimize that for now to make it a little bit bigger. So I'm going to give the commission an overview of how this was structured and set up by the folks at NDIT. I want to thank NDIT for their work on this. They were really great to work with. We had a quick turnaround time. The specific individual who worked on this reached out and asked questions, helped us work through the data, and was very responsive to any questions that we had. So how we did this, hold on. little better. Okay, I think that's a little bit better. So I want to walk through just kind of the categories that we have and how we can, as an entity, use this data and what all of these boxes that you can see I'm toggling over, what those mean and how we can use them. So one of the questions initially, I'm going to start with, you can see how many responses that we had. So responders, there was 1,025 total responses that came into the commission. So you can see that total number here. You will see that this number changes based on the role of the responder. So right now I have selected all of the classifications or the groups of individuals that they could put themselves or categorize themselves into when they completed the survey. So you have each of these questions is broke up or can be broken into by the role of the responder. So as we get into the substantive questions, we can analyze the data specific to a particular group of people who responded to a question. This was something that was really important to the commission because we can see the responses, how the responses of residents perhaps differed from public employees, elected officials, or advocates or nonprofit representatives. So you can see this. Right now I have all of them selected, but I can deselect and I can click particular ones that I then change. I'm going to just click this advocate or nonprofit representation. If you go over here now, as you hover, it then shows you the count, meaning how many responses, how many responders put themselves in that category, and then what the response rate was or what the percentage of the responses was. So this was a yes or no question. So all of them selected yes, so it would be 100%. So the other thing that we can do, and I'll get into that, is across the top, is how we show the data. So I'm going to start with the very first question, which is, how familiar are you with the Ethics Commission? So we can go ahead and select all, and you can see this is broke down by all of the responders that submitted. 170 people, or approximately 17%, said very familiar, and then you can break this down and hover over each one. We can also play with these categories up on top that show us the statewide response, which is what we have, a count by response, which you can see the labels across the top, show us how many within each of these categories was an advocate, how many was a business owner, how many were a business owner, how many were elected officials, lobbyists, public officials, residents. You will see that the majority of individuals are classified themselves as a resident. We can also change this just from a count to a percentage. So keep in mind on this, each one of these is going to be 100%. So this is a percentage of the responses that we got in that particular category. And then a count. So how many, it just breaks it by resident then, right? So of residents, how many said they were not familiar? How many said that they were slightly familiar, somewhat familiar, or very familiar? So this is important because as we are targeting a particular group that we need to get information out to, whether it's the regulated community, whether our target audience is going to be residents, this is going to be important information, particularly for Victoria, as we work on our communication. We can then do percentage by role. So if you look at all residents, 15% said this, 45. There is a lot of ways to play with this data, meaning to view it in different contexts. So I'm going to go back to just show the statewide response. I have all respondents here noticed. So you can then look at each of those questions. So you'll see that of the total responses, we actually had quite a few individuals, 45% and then 17%, say that they are somewhat familiar or very familiar with the Ethics Commission. That's fairly positive. The other question that we asked or that we used throughout the rest of the substantive questions, we used this question to again divide or create groups within our substantive questions. So I am going to switch to how important is ethical conduct by public officials to you. So this right now shows all of the statewide responses that if we look at all of the over 1,000 responses, 87%, and I think we've actually already put this statistic out there, 87% said that ethical conduct by public officials is extremely important. What we can do now is we can go and filter this by individuals who are not familiar at all with the commission, slightly familiar with the commission, somewhat familiar, and very familiar. I want to point out that there are some limitations on this data because we are not giving people tests to see how familiar they are with the commission. That is self-reporting. So it is their self-report of how familiar they feel. So if we go to individuals who are very familiar with the commission, that then changes these percentages. So all that is looking at is the responses, which was 170 people who were very familiar with the commission. For individuals who are not familiar, you can change it. It actually stays about the same. But so we can basically filter, I'm going to select all there. So we can filter any of these substantive questions by either the role of the responder or familiarity with the commission. So as we hopefully get educational material out there, we can really analyze this familiarity question if the commission wants to do this on a biannual or yearly basis. So we actually kind of were already thinking of how we can show these trends over year end or over biennium. So then the next question is, how confident are you that state government officials act ethically? This takes it from very unconfident, somewhat unconfident, neutral, somewhat confident, and very confident. Again, we can change this. And I'm really kind of showing you guys how to work this system so that you can go in and kind of check out the data for yourself. But I'm going to deselect these and I'm going to go to people who are very familiar with the commission. The percentages change a little bit there. You'll notice this somewhat confident actually goes up. This also changes slightly based on the role of the responder. So I found this one interesting. I'm going to select elected officials. So for elected officials who responded, and this tells us how many responses there were 26. So that's somewhat of a small sample size. But of those 26 individuals, you can see how they responded. This chart looks a little bit different than if we include everybody in this chart. Any questions at this point? I'll be honest, having this data in this format is really interesting to, I don't want to say play around with, but really analyze and look at. So what we got next is we broke the next few things down into what areas concern you the most. And we actually started with individuals. So we gave groups of individuals and which areas or which group of individuals maybe presented the most concerning things or that you cared the most about. And you can overwhelmingly see that state elected public officials were the highest here. Then these next few ones were those substantive questions where we asked folks to give us a scale of not important, somewhat important, neutral, somewhat important, and very important on specific substantive ethics issues. Now, one of the data restrictions that we have on this survey is that how one person defines conflict of interest, for instance, may be different than how another person defines conflict of interest. You will see this particularly in this next one that I will show you, which is misuse of public office. One of the questions that we didn't ask on the survey that we could in the future is, what does misuse of public office mean to you? This was a very high response rate to be in that very important category at 92% or 940 responses. And, but this may mean something different to different people, right? We did not define these terms on the survey. That may be something that we want to do better in the future. So you can click through each one of these. You will notice most of them fall within this very important category. Some of them you do see become a little maybe less important. I don't think that's probably the correct statistical term, but that's how I will use it. So one of the things is that the commission, as it's considering substantive ethics rules, looking at these particular substantive areas to maybe guide what direction the commission needs to go, that would be my suggestion. I do want to comment on the conflict of interest. That was relatively high at 82%, said that's very important. Conflict of interest has been probably one of the more talked about topics, particularly because there's been news articles about conflicts of interest. There is conflicts of interest rules. So that one may have a higher percentage due to just the information that's available. Then we get into kind of these logistical questions about which activity should be the Ethics Commission's highest priority. I think this was really important. You can see investigating complaints and enforcing ethics laws was very high. Now, what is interesting, and I haven't been playing with these counters or these qualifiers that are up on top. So if you look at, I'm just going to pick, I'm going to go this one. So you can see if we break this up by resident, public employee, lobbyist, how they classified each one of these. So if we go to a resident, improving the complaint process is really not a high priority for residents. It's not something, only 7.5% of them said that, where 40% of them said investigating and enforcing ethics laws. So you can see that these are somewhat relatively consistent across 5 groups. The lobbyist group is a little bit of an outlier. They had providing ethics education and training as their highest priority. I wanted to just point that out. You'll also see that becomes higher in elected officials and advocates and nonprofits. This information is going to be important when it comes to legislative session. And you can go in and do that for each one of the questions. I just haven't been doing that on each one. I could be here for several hours walking you guys through this. I also thought this one was, this is how easy do you think it should be for members of the public to file an ethics commission complaint or an ethics complaint? You can see how these responses worked out. If you go, I think it's, nope. I'm just going to do this. This changes a little bit based on, if you look at resident, where if you select a lobbyist, an elected official, these change slightly. And keep in mind that those are the individuals who are subject to the commission's jurisdiction that may have a complaint filed against them. So there is a little bit of different data based on the groups. How important is transparency about the Ethics Commission's work? You can probably hear the emphasis in my voice that this was a really important question for us internally. And you can see that this is very important. If we break this down by role, you have, this is a significant percentage of all the responses in all of the different groups. So transparency in our work matters. And then how would you, prefer to receive information? This is going to be helpful. I'll go back to the statewide response. This is going to be helpful for Victoria as she attempts to get information out there. And then this last one is, do you believe the public has enough information about ethics rules in North Dakota? And I just want to say, you can see that no is the overwhelming percentage of answers. And so this was an unsure, no, somewhat, yes. This also stays consistent across if I go by percentage by role. It's a little lower on lobbyists, which is interesting because they are the ones that wanted more education. So that's a bit of an inconsistency within the data. But the rest of them, you can see it's pretty consistent across it. Any other questions? Please keep in mind as you are reviewing this data, the number of individuals who responded in each group, particularly once we get into elected officials and lobbyists, it is lower. I asked about statistically significant, and I did not get a great answer from NDEC whether it is statistically significant. We have to go with the sample size that we have. Was sufficient. Yes, I did. Logan pointed out, I did ask if the response group was sufficient to get what I called good data, basically. And they said, yes, having 1,000 responses is very, I don't want to use the word good, but it's positive. It provides a lot of data, and it's not typical for a state agency public request for information or request for feedback from the public. In other words, good job, public, for responding. The other thing I want to point out that Jessica, who's with NDEC, pointed out to me is that we don't know necessarily how this information was disseminated, if it was targeted to particular groups of individuals. We know that both the Republican Party, the Democratic Party, and the newspapers got this out. But beyond that, we don't know what maybe advocacy groups or other groups picked it up. So there may be some skewing of that information, but we don't have that. We're not going to be able to tell that. That's something that we would know by doing this on a consistent biannual basis, that we could then learn that over time. So I will conclude by saying Victoria and I are going to be working on this and coming up with a way to get this information out to the public in a much better digestible form than all of the overwhelming amount of data that you have as commissioners in front of you. And we want it to be easily accessible. I've very, very briefly talked to Victoria about that, but that's going to be a priority for us in the coming, likely in the coming week. With that, Cindy, that's it. I'm guessing there are questions, comments, but you can go from there.
Commissioners.
Madam Chair, I would just add a couple things. So as someone who works with data on a regular basis, if I did a survey and I got 1,000 responses, I would be ecstatic. I would say the limiting factor to call this statistically significance is what Rebecca explained. We don't know if this is truly a random sample. These are the responses of the people we were able to reach through the avenues we used. So we don't know if it's truly a random sample, but nonetheless, over 1,000 responses is really good data. I think this is great information for us to help prioritize potential ethics rules areas that we want to move forward with in the future based on what the public is telling us is important to them. And I also think we can build on this survey if we were to do more public outreach in the future. And I would point out these questions were pointed toward the regulated community, so to speak. I would be interested in hearing the public's feedback on us internally, on the Ethics Commission itself. Do you think the Ethics Commission stinks? Do you want to have more access? Do you want to be able to talk to commissioners, that sort of thing? I think that would be valuable when the time is right as well. But thanks to NDIT for all the number crunching and the staff for the explanation today.
Other commissioners, any comments? Mark or Ron?
All I can say, Madam Chair and members, is that it is evident from a review of the data. I do share Commissioner Hubright's admonitions that the people who responded to the survey are individuals who are interested in North Dakota Ethics Commission stuff. And so is it a perfect statistical sample? I'm not a data-driven scientist, so I can't speak to that with any authority, but it seems that the public who responded to the survey is supportive of the work of the Ethics Commission and wants us to do our work. This is also helpful, I think, from a legislative perspective. Not only do we have a constitutional mandate, but there is strong public support for our investigation of ethics complaints. And I think inherent in that is that the public expects that we should be able to have the resources to do the job that the public expects us to do. I yield.
Thank you,
Yes.
Mark. Ron,
Yes.
any comments?
I like the data. First, a question. Does the public have the same access to this that we do?
Commissioner Goodman, they do not. This is a portal and keep in mind, I am not a tech person. Please forgive me. But it is called a Power BI platform. What I want to figure out is how we can communicate this data and get this information out to the public in a clear format, or get them honestly as much data as possible. We'll work with NDIT on how to do that.
So if we
So the
go,
short answer.
oh, go ahead, Rebecca.
was gonna
Sorry
say-
to interrupt.
No, Ron, I gave you a really long answer, but the short answer is no. This is internal, and we will have to figure out a way to either communicate it or get it disseminated.
Okay, so we commissioners go to the website, and how are we going to access it then?
So Ron, within your, Chair Goodman, not Chair Goodman, I apologize.
Call me
Commissioner
Ron.
Goodman. Commissioner Goodman, within your materials from today, within the memo, there is a link that individuals within the Ethics Commission have access to. I don't believe anybody had a problem accessing that.
Okay. I honestly went through the material, but I missed that, so. You wouldn't expect me to go through it dishonestly, I suppose.
Do we anticipate ever that we can put the way we have access to it now, could that ever be on our website? Or are there concerns that we're not even thinking about that
I'd like to
would
have
prevent that?
I'd like to have that discussion with NDIT because it's so user friendly that, but I think we have some limitations.
And I also want to say that so much of this information will be critical during the legislative session. It really will be.
Yeah, and Ron, if you didn't get to it, it might be okay because you can go down the rabbit hole. It was so much fun. I'm just like, oh my God. And especially the way you can jump around to see. I really appreciated that flexibility, I guess, and access by different respondents and all that, because it's insightful. But yeah, and it's like, oh, I actually pulled off and printed two of them that I want to make sure. Rebecca kind of alluded to them, but I for this discussion and kind of trying to tie in my farewell statement, discussion of this survey, and then segueing into our strategic plan. But on the survey, please rank your top 3 ethics topics from the list above. And granted, we gave them a list, but the top 4: conflicts of interest, misuse of public office, transparency in government, use of public resources. And the 5th one, and again, for me, if you look at the nice, beautiful color there, she's pulled it up for me. You can see, I love the color too, but, and these are all things we do, the commission has been working on, and that. And so I hate to say the word, but the survey kind of validates our work. Yeah, this is what we're doing. This is what we're paying attention to. you know, and that, and there's some other things on here too on that, but yeah. The other one is, which activities should be the Ethics Commission's highest priority? I'm going to pull that one up. Okay, how come my view is, there you go. So just looking at this and just graphs are so good. So the one up there that's got 76% investigating complaints and enforcing ethics laws. The next one to the left there is increasing transparency and public reporting. That's at 40%, and then 30% is improving state ethics laws. And again, for me, this also just complements and coincides with our discussions for the past 7 years. And what we do, what we're trying to do, what we're working on in that. So it's like, oh my gosh, but I found this survey fascinating. I'm quite impressed with this analysis tool because I'm like, whoa. And if I was still doing research and data, I'm like, oh my gosh, I would want this tool. And hopefully we can figure out a way to have the public access to it, because I think there might be some educator researchers out here in North Dakota who would love to take this and to take it further. I also want to acknowledge Justin, Commissioner Hubert's point. I think in our 7 years, we haven't necessarily, we've talked about it, but we've not, I don't think we've really gotten there relative to our own self-assessment about our work and how do we feel we're doing, let alone that the public's evaluation of us and our work. We've talked about it, and maybe this is kind of the beginning of that too, but just getting other perspectives of what we're doing, how we're doing, but including ourselves and how to improve it. And I think that's always good to self-evaluate this work. So this is really good stuff. And hopefully it does inform the next topic on the agenda. But before we move on, any other comments or questions about the survey?
I want to, sorry, Chair Lindquist, you had pulled up this top 3 ethics topics question, which was this question that we asked towards the end of the survey. There's another one. I'm going to just show this because I think it's kind of like cool. Maybe not functional as data, but I think it's kind of neat. And this shows you, it's like a word salad. They actually had a better word for it, and now I can't remember what they called this. A word cloud, maybe? It was cool. Yeah, that sounds about right. But basically, these are the open-ended. We asked, like, are there any other things that we should know about, prioritize? And then they took all of the words, and you can look and see, you can click on each one, like public was said 71 times, elected was said 52, ethics was said 70, state was said a lot, 88. And this really takes those open-ended questions and gives us some words to kind of look at, right? Or view as important. So she said it was very funny. She's like, maybe you can use this as a background for some presentation or something. I was like, yeah, that's kind of cool. We did go through and take out some kind of nonsense words from this, but other than that, that was the only other thing that that they did at the end. This was kind of more of a fun thing that we did. That's all I have.
All right. I believe we're ready to move on our agenda under ongoing business to item
Madam
B.
Chair.
Yes,
Could we take a break?
sure. All right, I have 10:18 a.m. We will reconvene at 10:30. So we are in recess. All right, welcome back. I can see Mark and Rod, so we are back live, and we are on item 7 on our agenda, ongoing business, and topic B, discussion of strategic plan. Rebecca.
Give me 1 second. I thought I had it printed out. I don't.
And on the memo, commissioners, on the memo, if you go There's a link on the memo to get to the strategic plan folder. And if I was staying on, I would then say, I need tech help because like, how do I bookmark this so it's on my desktop or on the screen so I don't have to go to the memo, click on the link, find the folder.
We can help. We can help with that. So, I want to review. I want to start, or I guess, really review where the commission. I'm just going to give you guys a launching point for where you guys left off on strategic planning. The last time we addressed this was in February. So you can see there's a document called Strategic Planning Session Notes. This was emailed out to the commission after its last strategic planning meeting or discussion that we had. I see a few of you are now in here and can see this. But really, this was the notes that you guys asked staff to type up after you guys had this discussion. I think, and I hope I accurately represent what happened, is that the discussion, the primary discussion was on amending or changing the mission statement. And then Pam also, Commissioner Sharp brought up the vision statement thoughts, having some sort of vision statement that goes along with the mission statement. And so I also articulated at the beginning of that, there were several, I believe there were 4 of the commissioners who walked through kind of just their overall thoughts of the strategic plan. And so you can go ahead. I'm assuming that everybody has reviewed this and there are some vision statement thoughts or notes. I do want to make the note that this was from my handwritten notes. So I apologize if this is not accurate. I think that it is, but I may have had something not entirely correct. There's this planning priorities, and basically this was the question of how do we do or create this strategic plan. Maybe I should share this document, so this would be helpful. Do you want me to put this up on the screen? Yay, this time it worked the way it's supposed to. So this is currently in a very, very draft form where it walks through. There were some questions that we wanted to talk about. And this echoes actually back to the question that Commissioner Hubrights brought up, is that does having the commission understand what the commission does, and does the commission or does the public trust the commission, that our mission continues. And I think that there was a lot of comments about the fact that we need to understand the authority of the commission. That has been a theme throughout our discussions on the strategic plan. And then communications was also another one. So I am also I'm going to stop sharing this, and I'm going to drop back to another document that I have. And most of this information was from our February meeting, and this hasn't been on the agenda because we've had other stuff and other work to do. But this was really just the strategic planning preparation information that I provided to the commission. We walked through the Constitution. This is a historical timeline of what the commission has done. These are really like historical markers of things that have happened and have affected the work of the commission, whether it's gaining capacity, having additional rules in effect, or just formation type things. Some of it is operational, others of it is legal. And then the current mission statement, which I think is really what the commission focused on. And then we have done strategic planning in the past, in the spring of 24, 22, and 2020. We are now in the spring of 2026. The same strategic planning will not be taking place where we will be presenting our strategic plan to the governor's office. I have not been informed that that is going to be happening, but I do still think that we need to do that. And then there is a link to our former strategic plans. And there are several documents here. So I think for the purposes of today, in light of both the public priorities survey information and the farewell message from Chair Lindquist, I think reviewing this and kind of considering whether the mission statement, if we want to revise that, if we want to look at kind of some sorry about this. Now I'm toggling between two documents. For our vision statement as well, the other way to frame this instead of a vision statement is kind of what are going to be our core beliefs or our core beliefs as an entity. But we can do this a few different ways. Chair Lindquist, I will kind of hand it over to you, I guess, to get some direction on how you want to move on it. I'm going to jump back to this one too. This is where we left off. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, and I guess I'm going to defer to my colleagues about how do we want to do this, because I think we need more time and a specific time frame or slots to really flesh out the new strategic plan or the updated strategic plan. We've got all the background information. The other one that I refer to a lot, and I've got it dated March of 24. We put out one when we did a strategy review, but in that strategy review, we actually set goals by year. And I think most of those years coincided with the biennium years. And most of these I think are still applicable. But again, I think the commission needs to, now let's look at this, let's prioritize. I like the idea too of we've got the mission statement and having the complementary vision, because I think that helps us to be on the same page. So commissioners, what do you want to do?
Chair Lindquist, my thoughts are, I have a few thoughts. First, I'm supportive of discussing this today, or at least bring everybody back up to speed today. And I know you'll be unfortunately leaving us, but I almost feel like a special meeting is an appropriate venue to have this more full discussion. And for me personally, it is easier for me to not have to switch my brain from the topics of a particular meeting versus our forward-looking strategy. So I'd be interested in what other commissioners think about a special meeting to talk through strategy. Also, if we had a special meeting that may coincide with a new commissioner who would probably benefit from a lot of this background and just learning about how we're thinking currently. I have drafted a vision statement. I'm supportive of the mission statement, but then again, I did help draft that too, so I'm biased on that one. And yeah, I have thoughts on rulemaking too, but I just feel that's probably a long form discussion more appropriate for a special meeting.
I'm assuming too, Jared, that when you say a special meeting, that it's the one topic. Let's let's deal with the strategic plan. Let's get it in place, that kind of thing. And I agree too. I think it's timely relative to onboarding another new member, and then coalescing the existing body and the newer members to the body. So yeah, but Pam?
I was just going to say, I agree wholeheartedly. It should be a special meeting where we're simply focused on strategic planning. And now that we know we're going to be getting a new member, it would be very timely to wait until that new member is on board.
Okay, Mark or
Madam-
Ron, any
Madam
comments?
Chair, I'm inclined to agree. The issues contemplated by strategic planning are deep dive oriented, and I think it would benefit the commission that its members are able to deep dive on this issue as opposed to dealing with rulemaking, policy issues, advisory opinion issues, or complaint administration, and balancing those things in one meeting. I yield.
I'll agree. I think that there's there's too much information that we have to concentrate on to do it today. I think we'd go well into the afternoon. I was going to say the evening, but that'll just encourage us if we have a special meeting to do it for a long time. So I'm going to agree that we should have a special meeting to discuss it.
I think you have consensus. Do you want to consider dates? Any suggestions? Because from my perspective, I think the sooner the better. But again, I won't be here, so it's up to the 4 remaining commissioners. Or Rebecca, any points or comments?
Just want to provide the commission with some kind of logistical information considering the timing of our budget that needs to be submitted on July 15th. I think having this meeting before then to ensure that our budget requests align with the revised strategic plan. So if we look at our budget requests that we currently are considering, I want to be very clear, nothing is set in stone by any means. Those are in line with the strategic plan that was put together in 2024. So just a logistical thing of, yep, I think that's a good idea, but let's not kick it too far down the road so that if something changes or that we need to reprioritize goals, et cetera, that we can do that and respond with our budgetary request. So there's that note. The second thing is that we have used kind of the same format, and it is the format that has been put out by OMB in previous bienniums to really get at strategic planning. And it thinks of the big issues and it works this time frame backwards. It goes from the big, hairy, audacious goals. I don't love that term, but that's what it is. Okay. But it works from there, and then it works backwards effectively. And then it helps you consider then what do we need to prioritize and what resources do we need to do to get those priorities done. My question for the commission is whether we want to maintain that same structure or if the commission wants to alter it, because I think working that way and having a kind of a base to work from can be helpful. I also think there are instances that starting fresh is helpful. So I guess I would like direction from the commission on that logistical consideration. And maybe we don't want to take that on today, that's fine. But I have pulled up, you can see the 2024 strategic plan, and I just have the looking ahead to 5-10 years, what this looks like and what we did in 2024. So I guess I'd like direction on that front.
Then
Madam Chair,
the other,
I-
go ahead, Mark.
the only other thing I was going to suggest that's part of the consideration is thinking about the timeline on when a new member is actually going to be selected. I may be getting ahead of us in terms of the agenda, but I don't know when interviews are scheduled for the next set, and whether we're even able to realistically schedule a meeting that takes place after somebody new is selected. Maybe that's not a realistic expectation, considering how long things took last time around. I yield.
Thank you. That's what I was going to mention. If I understand correctly, I think the trio meets Friday, 22nd, May 22nd.
Potentially.
And I don't know if I got that from the memo or something or whatever, but
I think that date has been thrown around as a potential
Oh,
date, but I
okay,
don't know if
yeah.
that's for sure.
so, but I'm assuming
It's checking.
soon and yeah, and that should be a consideration also. And then is it July 1st for the budget? Due date?
Chair Lindquist, it's July 15th.
July 15th. Okay.
I do not want to wait till July 15th to get it
Yeah.
done though.
Yeah. Agree. Okay.
Hasn't there been an indication that they want to get the new commissioner on board prior to the June meeting so that we would be fully commissioned? Is that, did they say that?
Commissioner Sharp, they did, the committee or the selection committee did make that note. And then we informed them that the next June meeting is June 24th. I think they were thinking that they had to have it done before June 1st.
Okay.
But anyway, we communicated that information to them. So yes, I think that is their hope.
Yep.
I will also note, however, that they said this made a similar statement last time. And you never know.
As far as
According
official,
to the public meeting notices, there's nothing yet scheduled in terms of a selection committee meeting.
and to add to that, Commissioner Western, their questionnaires or the questions they send out are due on Friday. So I assume they will set interviews after that.
That's right. Well, let's be optimistic. Right. But in the meantime, yeah, I'm going to encourage you that schedule your special meeting, address the strategic plan, get that moving, and then however you onboard the new member, and then pull them into not just onboarding, orientation and that, but then where you're at with the strategic plan. So do you want them to try to look at your calendars and try to at least tentatively schedule a special meeting for strategic planning? Throw out some dates.
Get mine.
Can I make another recommendation before I think, look at your dates, but if we could select possibly, as Chair Lindquist is going to be no longer the chair as of in a few days, 10 days, 11 days, if we could maybe select a point of contact or a commissioner that I could maybe prep in order to maybe, I don't know if we want to have the vice chair do it or if we want to select a particular commissioner to, I'm going to say, own the issue. That's the word we use in our house, right? You're going to own the
Commissioner,
issue.
take the lead on strategic planning. Okay.
Yes,
Take
that
the
I
lead.
can have as my point of contact.
And do we have a volunteer? Commissioner Huberts or Commissioner Sharp? And mainly because I get to look at them here
Yeah.
in the office or in the meeting room, so.
I'll do it if I get to suggest a week for a potential special meeting. I was looking at the week of June 8th or the following week, June 15th. But Madam Chair, I would be willing to own the strategic plan issue.
All right, you have a lead.
Much
I have a-
appreciated.
I have a trial on June 8th and 9th, which would make me unavailable. I have a commitment for much of the next week, but depending on how long a meeting lasts in the format, I've got American Legion North Dakota Boys State in Wapaton during that week. But if we're looking at a half day or a full day, I can work through blocks of time.
I have a commitment too that I need to share. It involves picking up two of my grandchildren from the camp ed at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and then keeping them till 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So if we could do a morning, that would be really awesome. And I mean, I maybe even could, yeah, that would be great if we could do a morning.
They're welcome to join us too, Commissioner Sharp.
They might- I just have to go
Additional
pick them up.
education.
Right.
I was thinking a half day morning session. Mark, what about 10, 11, 12 June? Are those blocked off for you?
Let me confirm.
They're good for me.
After, I've got a comment. Anyone else want to say anything right now? Okay, I'm going to Minneapolis next week to have some tests taken on in anticipation of a procedure that I'm supposed to have. And the procedure is going to be scheduled sometime in June, but I don't know when. So that may be a problem as far as me attending the meeting, but I think we should just schedule it, not knowing when I'm going to be going, and then proceed from there. Okay? And I'm pretty well free. The 10th, did somebody suggest?
I can make
Yeah,
12
June
work.
10, 11, and 12 right now, I think is on the table or being discussed.
Yeah,
Mark?
I'm free any of those days.
Same.
Same.
Okay, Jared, do you want to call it?
How about Wednesday, June 10th? 8:30 a.m. Is that
Mhm.
all right? Till
Oh,
approximately
I'm retired, Jared.
12:30 p.m.
12:30 is fine with me, not 8:30. 9 o'clock's tough enough. I say 9 o'clock is fine on the 10th. Or the afternoon.
Well, let's change it to starting at 9 a.m. on the 10th, understanding that Pam has commitments at 1 p.m.
All right. So the North Dakota Ethics Commission has scheduled a special meeting regarding the strategic plan. That special meeting isn't scheduled for Wednesday, June 10th, starting at 9 a.m. And thank you, Jared. Virtual.
Do you want to do this on Teams, or do you want to have you to have individuals in? It's always better to have these discussions in person, but I also realize that Teams may be the most efficient.
I would certainly say that Teams is acceptable way to attend. I would probably be here in person, but we can set up a Teams format too.
If we have any commissioners here in person, because we are using the conference room as a second office right now, we will find another room to have it in, but perhaps a smaller room than the Sakakawea room.
I'll attend online.
Okay. All right. We are ready to move on our agenda. We are still under ongoing business, item 7, and we will proceed to topic C, the 27-29 budget request discussion. Rebecca.
Chair Lindquist, I'm assuming you want me to start just by overviewing the information that we have to date. Before we start this discussion, I want to be very clear. This is not, there has not been a motion approving these as the requests that we will be taking forward. These are draft proposals. And when I say draft, I mean set in sand, maybe a little firmer than sand, but at this point it is gathering information. So I'm very grateful. Commissioner Sharp met with both myself and Addie. I think it was a week and a half ago, maybe. And we basically took the discussion that happened at the commission's April meeting, and we attempted to prioritize those and develop what we call decision packages. So right now, our base budget, meaning the amount of money that we will get to go into the 27-29 legislative session or biennium with, that has been selected as our base budget based on OMB's calculation, is $1,322,107. What we have to do is take any amount of money that we need in addition to any funds, in addition to that 1.3 million, and request it. So we have to prioritize those and kind of group them as decision packages. This is where Pam's expertise with OMB and budgeting came into play, and it was a good discussion. These, again, we did have some questions that we wanted to present to the commission and the prioritization of those. So you will see that there are 8 different decision packages. The last one is the 3% reduction in the commission's base budget. This is something that we will be required to do, and this will be a kind of a submission that is just a formality, but also something that we've been requested to do. So that is, and we are doing that as a decision package. That is the direction that we've received from OMB. So I want to walk through each of these decision packages with the understanding that this is maintaining the commission's ongoing funding. So everything that we currently are funding should be able to, and we've been running rough numbers. We have not gotten into specifics yet. We will be doing that in the coming weeks. But right now, coming up with really the overall direction is more important, and we will get into the nitty-gritty numbers as we get closer for budgeting purposes. But effectively, this is maintaining the ongoing operating budget, the ongoing salary budget, the ongoing professional fees, which make up most of those 3 kind of big things make up most of our budget, maintaining those unless otherwise noted in the decision packages, meaning that we can save money on some things or offset in that. So if we look at decision packages, I have these listed 1 through 7. I'm not going to focus on 8, which is that contingency. We kind of got direction from the commission in March. We can talk about it, but we got direction, in April on how to deal with that contingency budget reduction. If we start with the decision package 1, it is a request for an FTE. You will notice that we made each of these FTEs a specific decision package that will be for the legislature's consideration. You will see the first one is some sort of legal, and I am phrasing this as legal FTE. There is the purpose. So with each of these decision packages, we will have to provide a justification. Why are we asking for this? And if we don't get this, what services will not happen or be delayed? The biggest purpose of this FTE request is going to be getting through complaints quicker and being able to process both complaints and advisory opinions and doing legal research, all of it in a more timely fashion. One of the things that we I mean, also, let's look at the public priority survey. Investigating complaints was a priority for the public and for all of our kind of focus groups. But I want to be very clear on this, is that there is just added, we need additional attorney or legal time. And I do not want anybody in the public or the commission to ever think that I am not saying that our current general counsel is not capable. It's just he has more work than he can realistically do. Now, with that said, we are getting through complaints. However, it's taking quite a bit of time. So if we could cut that time, I know that there was a 180-day timeline thrown out during last legislative session. Yes, I think everybody wants these to be done quicker, but having one attorney do this is really not sufficient. We can kind of see how those turnaround times. So the purpose of this FTE is to do that. One of the questions is, can we use other attorneys to do this? And the question or the answer is perhaps, or sometimes, it depends, give you the legal answer. But one of the things is that there are we do use outside counsel for some complaint work. However, hiring outside counsel presents an entirely different set of issues that we have to analyze, namely whether we can find an attorney at someplace outside of the commission that does not have a conflict of interest with the commission. Many attorneys, attorney offices, attorney firms, they either have a lobbyist that works for them or that they do work on behalf of. So they will have a conflict. So they won't be able to take our work. Also, if they represent another state agency, if they represent a state board or commission, they also will likely be conflicted out under the professional rules for attorneys. The other instance that we have is that attorneys cannot be suing the state for money damages. So many times, if you are not representing a state agency, you may in fact be suing the state for money damages. That's going to be the other group of attorneys, but those individuals are also conflicted out. So what we have really started, or what we utilize, is individuals who are either by themselves or in smaller firms or are retired and are working kind of in that capacity still where they're working and they have a lot of expertise, but they're maybe moving toward retirement. That is a small group of attorneys. And having somebody, we also are paying outside counsel $300 an hour. That comes out of our professional fees. So I think if we were to move this inside, we pay less per hour inside the commission. We pay less per hour, and we get more work from an individual.
And you also don't have to spend the time trying to find that person somewhere.
That is correct.
Has to be.
Commissioner Sharp. It also is time consuming to do that. I do a lot of phone calls to try and find somebody, and many of them are fruitless. So the question is whether we should prioritize this particular FTE. Now, the reason I have this as a legal FTE is the question, or something that the commission can consider, is some of the work that could be done may be able to be done by a paralegal. And so that would be a less expensive option. This person would report to our general counsel, would work on behalf of or at the direction of the general counsel. It may be able to maybe get us into that realm and get some legal work done. We would still need to have outside counsel in that instance, in some instances as well. But I think that they could help, or they could alleviate some of the reduce the amount of time that complaints are reviewed. The other thing with having a legal FTE is we may be able to offset or reduce the amount of professional fees that we need. We currently have $120,000 in our budget for professional fees, and we likely may be able to reduce that if we can bring on another legal individual. Any questions, comments on this particular decision package.
I have one comment. I'm just looking at the numbers here. And it looks like there is not a huge difference in the amount of money between an attorney and a paralegal. It seems rather small for the amount of work that person would not be able to do if it was a paralegal. I think the attorney route is a good option.
Yeah, I noted the $34,000 discrepancy between the two positions, and I prefer it to be an attorney at the 270-ish level. Under, I assume, would be like a deputy to Logan or something similar to that.
One other comment. I think we can consider, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the work that our legal counsel does with the complaints and the advisory opinions, those are part of our core function, right? I mean, that's like very core. So I think that lends itself maybe to being the number one priority. But also, I want to hear what others think about that.
This is Ron. You know, I think we're used to talking in terms of 1 year. This is the biennium, so it's actually $17,000 a year is the difference between attorney and paralegal. And certainly nothing against paralegal, because I've worked with some that have just been very, very good. But the limitations on them, I think, are too many if we can have an attorney. So I'm in favor of having an attorney.
Mark, any comments?
Well, I don't disagree that having another attorney is helpful. I think we have to, and I'll admit that I'm new to the budget process, and so admittedly, I'm unaware of how we are looking to even frame this. If the question is another attorney good, my answer is yes. How are we framing, or do we balance with some of the other priorities that are discussed in the other package? So I'm trying to work through the process.
Commissioner Western, I think that's what we're here to talk about, right? Is what should be a priority. And I think that's a good point. I think specifically when it comes to requesting additional legal, the really important thing is going to be the why and the justification, and talking about I want to call it the delayed responsiveness of complaint work, and not by any fault of commission staff or the commission, but just that it is a time-consuming process and we need more hands on deck or more capacity. So, but I do think we need to consider, and that came up in the discussion that we had with Commissioner Sharp, as to how do we balance that with let's go to decision package 2, which is another FTE. And this is an education and outreach coordinator. The commission has asked for this particular position for the last 2 bienniums. The first time we requested it in 2023, the legislature responded with a basically hybrid approach of, yep, we'll give you a part-time educator and a part-time attorney. So an attorney who does 50% education and 50% legal work. over the course of since 2023, September of 2023, when Logan came on board, his work has gradually, if not significantly, shifted away from education to legal. Had we maintained his 50% education, 50% legal work status, meaning that's how his workload should be split, we would be even farther behind in complaint review. We've tabled education almost entirely. I think we've had way fewer, and I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but very few education or outreach opportunities since we have tabled this. Keep in mind, the Senate did support an education and outreach coordinator last legislative session, and it was the House that did not agree to that, ultimately then pulling that from the budget. So I do think that we need to ask for that. The question is outreach and education, should that be prioritized over additional legal help? So I think that Commissioner Sharp and myself and Addie had some discussion, and we said, hey, let's throw that to the commission to see what they think. What should the priority be between those two? So I guess with that, I hand it over to, keep in mind, we have some public data, right, to consider as well, but I hand that over to the commission with that background.
Chair Lindquist, if I'm making that decision today, and this obviously is not a final decision, it's a difficult choice, but I do think the attorney for me would take priority. If we were limited to one FTE, the attorney would be my choice.
This Ron, I feel that way too, for maybe a little different reason. I know with education and outreach, at some point there's an amount of burnout from our audience. If we've got education outreach permanently, and we have seminars for legislators, for executive branch employees, and there's always some turnover, and I know that. But it seems to me that at some point the educator is going to be less and less utilized by our constituents. And maybe that's only me, but for that reason, I feel that we should have an attorney that can do some education. And I don't think we have to look for an education background with that person, because he or she will have to learn the things that they are going to be teaching from us, from our staff that we have now anyway. So that's my feeling.
I'm inclined to agree that if I'm going to pick between an attorney and a pure educational position, I'd pick attorney over the other. I think education is extremely important, especially having been an educator. But when I'm thinking about the core constitutional charges of the commission, the administration of complaints is number one, and that's obviously reflected in the public priorities survey that we went through earlier as well. I yield.
I totally agree with that. I think we should, I mean, I mean, we have to prioritize these, so we have to have a number one. So it does make sense for it to be number one. But I do think that in our discussions with the legislature and during committees, when we're trying to make our case, I think we need to make them understand how important education is and how much that educator person could take off the plate of the attorneys and of Rebecca's position. So that it would, so they could just focus on the education, answer all those questions that come in by legislators and state agencies, and, you know, direct them to the right advisory opinion, that kind of thing. I think we need to, since we have requested it, did you say twice before? This would be the third time?
That's correct.
Then, yeah. I think we should not let it go. But I think it should be safely number two. And I also think that we should, I mean, I think both of these positions are absolutely critical. They're critical. And we don't want to have to pick one over the other. I think they're both critical, but I think we just have to try to explain it that way, how critical they are.
Commissioner Hubrights, in your research, did you find how many other state ethics commissions have an education and outreach person? Do you remember? Like, I know I'm asking you off the top of your head, but I'm wondering if, and if not, I can find that.
I could find a number, but you know, based on my recollection, most other state ethics commissions, including the ones most comparable to the North Dakota Ethics Commission, have not only one education position, but oftentimes multiple education position.
Okay, I'm going to jump in now. And you know, I tend to listen, and I'm going to just circle us back as we've discussed this, and including for the last several years. And I know what we're trying to do, but I still believe and feel strongly that the request should be, we need 3 FTEs. And here's why we need these 3 FTEs. And it's justified by the workload. So we articulate that clearly. And then we say, we want 3 FTEs. However, the most important one is this attorney role. And mainly, again, to keep up with the workload specific to cases. And that, so it's like getting it on record officially as we make the request, both through the governor's office and the budgeting process, and then as you set up for the legislative session. And I'm not sure, well, I think I understand why we've set this up on our agenda this way. And I appreciate all the work that you've done, Pam and Rebecca and staff. But how do we still stand our ground and explain, defend, justify what we're talking about specific to needs to have a fully functioning commission and to do the work? And then the other thing is, we're talking FTEs. There's 3 FTEs, and to me, these other packages, 4, 5, 6, 7, those are related back to just operations, right? To administering, to doing the work. So we get the 3 FTEs. This is what happens, and this we need this, and so that's like, it's not one or the other, because it's like you've got to have the operating, you know, to have the functioning FTE and that. So yeah, I appreciate this discussion. I agree on that. Number one is the attorney versus a paralegal. But then again, ideally, it's like, yeah, it's really 4 FTEs. Because I think Logan, and if he had another worker, attorney, they could probably use a paralegal. I think it's gonna kind of work its way out specific because we've got 3 very highly qualified interns right now to help us staff what we need to get this work done. And I think remains to be seen, but I'm assuming the caseload of 39 or 41 cases that are pending and that there might be a little more expediting going on because we got a little more help, professional help to get it done in that. So again, I think we can document and defend. So, and I know we've got to play the game. I'll say it that way. So, but I think we're all unified or together relative to, we know what the needs are. And it's 3 FTEs. You're making us prioritize the system, the process. Okay, fine, we want a lawyer, but we really want a lawyer and an educator and a paralegal and an administrative assistant. So, yeah, then putting it forward that way. And then again, these other things here, based on that, here's what the operational costs are for those 3 scenarios. So what do you need us? You need us to.
Well, I'd like to, Chair Lindquist, I want to walk through the rest of the decision packages and how we got to some of the estimated numbers.
Okay.
And you will notice the decision packages, I'm going to say toward the end, for instance, the cost of an independent audit, that has been, I'm going to say that's been verified by another state agency that is a need for the commission. We have prioritized it last because it's kind of has to get done. It has to get done. There shouldn't be much back and forth or discussion. That's going to be a number that we get from the auditor, et cetera. And those same things actually similarly apply to decision package 4, 5, and 6. I do want to talk a little bit about decision package 4 and 5, just kind of how those potentially could work. But 6 and 7 are things that have already been discussed with the legislature that are things that really need to happen. Is that a safe way to say that? So let's jump to decision package 3, which is an additional FTE. This is something that the commission has discussed, having an administrative assistant FTE. I would also frame this as a filing clerk or somebody to help with the case management system. Keep in mind, the idea is that we will have a functioning case management system. So we are going to need somebody who's going to be managing that, who needs to own that. And so I view this administrative assistant position as providing administrative support to Logan, myself, and to Addie. But then on top of it, also assisting with that case management system and making sure that it is operating correctly. I reflect back on my time with the federal court. We have multiple individuals, I'd say probably 5 or 6, who own the filing system at the federal court. There's a lot more filings there than there is with the Ethics Commission, but you have 5 or 6 people, and then you actually have another individual who reviews their work. So it's a quality check through their systems. And so I think really having that position serve that dual role would really, this would be a game changer for the administrative work that both Logan, myself, and Addie do, that we really kind of spread it over all 3 of us because we don't have anybody to pick that up. Any questions on that particular one? So decision package 4, this is a package. This is truly like an actual package where we took several things that the commission needs to continue business, and we have grouped them together for the ease of presenting it to the legislature. So what this includes commissioner salary. So I want to be really clear about how we calculate and how commissioner salary is different than staff salary. So staff salary, the raise that staff gets, which is a legislative kind of cost of living adjustment that is done each legislative session, that is automatically calculated by OMB and put into everybody's budget. What is not automatically put into our budget is the increase in salary for commissioners. So each legislative session, so salaries, excuse me, I'm going to start over. Commissioners are paid pursuant to a statutory salary determination. I believe it is around $208 or $215 for commissioners. Each legislative session, that number goes up by roughly between 5 to 10%, depending on inflation. So what isn't added to our budget is that extra 5 or 10% that we need for each meeting that the commission attends. We currently have what we are currently paying commissioners, but that number goes up, so we need that difference. Now, what we have also done in calculating commissioner salaries, what we have, which is not what we have done in the past, we have undershot or under-asked for commissioner pay every legislative session, and we want to correct that this legislative session. So, for instance, every month, the executive director has a pre-meeting before every meeting with the chair. That is a meeting, that is something that is paid, that the commissioner is paid for. We have never included that in the calculation before. We also pay commissioners their per diem or their salary to attend COGL. That is also never been calculated or included in our salary calculation for commissioners before. We've always been able to pull that from other areas, but our budget is getting, as you can see today, it's getting so tight that we don't have a lot of wiggle room there. The other thing that we have included, and this is based upon the discussion from the commission in March, is the attendance at town halls and commissioner attendance at educational meetings. And we have those, I'm gonna pull this up for you guys so you can see the rate at which we are doing this. And I want the commission to consider whether we should maintain this or change it.
So may I interrupt as though it were my turn to speak here, just to ask a couple of questions on all of the information that you discussed as far as this package or this particular decision package number 4 is concerned. And this is a question both for the executive director as well as for the benefit perhaps of the wisdom of Commissioner Sharp. You have discussed the issue of what I think I could just call a per diem, and how you suspect that there's going to be a change in per diem almost as a matter of course. In recent North Dakota OMB/legislative history, has there ever been an instance where the per diem was just left flat? I asked that question especially in light of the governor's 3% reduction request, and whether or not this is something that may be an issue that is potentially static. I yield.
Well, I'll jump in here first. Honestly, I don't know. There are not that many agencies who have commissioners that have commissioners. What the ones that come to mind are WSI, and I don't know how that's been handled. And the other one would be the Board of Higher Education. And I don't know how the Board of Higher Education ever handled that either. So I don't know.
Commissioner Western, so how commissioners are paid is based upon a statute in 5466, and it references back to a pay rate for legislators attending their out of session meetings. In my time with the commission and in the previous 2 bienniums that I've reviewed, so I've gone back to 2019, that has always increased because it increases the legislative pay. So it is directly linked to the legislator pay per time. So I anticipate that that will not change or that it will stay static. I guess I don't have any data to suggest that it would, even in those years that even employee pay has stayed static where they didn't do raises for state employees. This number has changed based upon my review.
Okay.
And how we've calculated what that change will actually be. So you'll see the rate is actually, you'll see this is $250. So we have gone and averaged what the rate increase from 2019 to 2021 to 2023, and we've taken that and averaged it. It's been anywhere between 5 to 10%. So I think we averaged it at 8. I'd have to go back and specifically look at what it was, but that is how we calculated it, is based on an average. We didn't just pull that out of thin air.
I'm not implying that you did.
No.
I just think about legislators are not recovering politicians, and sometimes politicians are loath to want to pay themselves any more, depending on a whole variety of economic factors. And I don't expect that anyone here as to how the legislature will tackle that in the coming biennium, but I just see it as an issue that is certainly prospectively in flux. That's all. I yield.
And to the next question that I have for the commission is, as we calculate the commissioner's salary, we have included in here town halls, and we have this as every other month. And so, and we have it for 2 days, one for a travel day and one for the actual town hall. This was based on the discussion in March. As you can see, this is a significant cost. This is almost here. I'm gonna highlight this a particular color so you can see what the cost is of this. I selected orange and now it's not showing up. There it is. So these town halls on an annual basis will come to approximately $15,000. And that is also considering all commissioners attend, and we have it for 2 days, and it is every other month. So this is going to be effectively six a year. The question that I have for the committee is, and I want to be very clear, we overshot this and we knew that we provided what I would consider conservative, or maybe it's actually progressive, I'm not sure. But basically, I want to make sure we have enough money to do what the commission wants to do. But that is the number. And if you will notice, it is actually just shy of the pay or what we would be doing for a regular meeting. So I guess I'm posing to the commission whether we want to continue that or whether we want to pull that back a little bit as far as coming up with a calculation that would then affect the previous or the next year as well. And then the last one is we have educational meetings. We have one commissioner doing this 4 times a year, and these are when commissioners would either hold an educational event or be part of an educational event. That's really, this is a pretty conservative number for that particular event. But I think town halls, I did have a question on that.
I have a comment on the town halls. I think we could cut back on that, because right now when I'm thinking about, do we have the capacity to get our act together to actually do this every other month, and come up with the agendas, the topics, the whatever it is, that's going to take a lot of work, and it's probably going to be a gradual thing as we find our way how to do that. So I'm thinking every other month is too strong, way too strong. And in the end, maybe it'd be nice if we could do it every quarter or, well, I'm not sure what the right timing is. But I would like the dollar amount to be a smaller number so it doesn't appear that we don't really have a solid plan and yet we're asking too much money.
Did you say that number reflects all commissioners attending?
That is correct.
Which I think doesn't make sense either.
Yeah, probably wouldn't happen that everyone.
You know,
could
maybe
attend.
2, right? Just because of scheduling and
Yeah.
yeah, but I agree with Pam's.
Yeah, I think it is too much to plan for this every other month. I think quarterly would be better, or 3 times a year. I'm going to suggest and agree with Pam that we should do something on a quarterly basis.
Based on that feedback, I think if we were to change this, can I go with 3 commissioners so we have a quorum? That way we ensure that we have enough money to cover having a quorum, and then adjust it to every quarter. And then another question is, do I leave it at 2 days, meaning a travel day and a meeting day based on location? Because we did want to do these throughout the state. I think that virtual could be an option too. So maybe we adjust this to 1.5 days.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too.
For Bismarck people, yes, but for people outside of Bismarck, I think 2 days would be better. Let's put it this way. Of course, I'm a little older than Mark is, but I know that if I have a travel day to Bismarck and then a travel day back, that's kind of all that I want to do, you know, and you know, I'm a little older than Mark, but maybe Mark has the same feeling. Maybe he wants to just do 1.5, but I think 2 for me would be better. And we don't know what the new person would do, obviously.
And I think one of the questions that I have when thinking about something like this, let's say that we've got a hypothetical town hall in Minot, all right? Is the hypothetical town hall a noon luncheon thing, or is the hypothetical town hall a evening type of thing? What is contemplated? Because I think part of that maybe portends what is appropriate and realistic to think about with respect to travel times.
Well, yeah, and then I'm going to question Rebecca's point about wanting 3 commissioners, because do you want the town hall to be a meeting? Or is it an educational forum, or what is it?
So I think that it would show to the public that the commission is listening if we have at least a quorum and have it there. I guess that was my thought process on that. I do appreciate Mark's comment about timing and when it could be. I want the commission to keep in mind that this is averages, because there may also be instances where we have a town hall in Fargo, so Mark won't be traveling. Or we have one in Oaks and Ron won't be traveling. So but it's difficult we obviously don't want to go and determine where every town hall is and what every formats should be. So we want to give ourselves enough available funds in the budget to be able to do this and have some basis for our calculation, being conservative and being good stewards of taxpayer money, but also ensuring that we have enough funds to do what we need to do, or do what the commission would like to do when it comes to outreach for individuals. So I think I like the average of 1.5 because then it reduces it a little bit, but it also gives enough that if we need to have an additional travel day, or Mark, maybe we'll make you go to Williston. I mean, or ask you to go to Williston.
I love Williston.
That's a long ways to go, but it gives us the ability to adjust. And at this point, because it is a new number that we are coming up with, we have to take, I'm going to call it an educated guess, right? As to how much this is ultimately going to be.
Okay, do you have,
I have enough direction on what that is based on that discussion.
okay,
As long as the commission is good, I will consider Ron's 2-day travel comment, but if 1.5 on average would work.
The only other thing I would add to this topic of budgeting when we think about town halls, the same way I think we are thinking about what we're doing in terms of full-blown commission meetings, is that it's important that the Ethics Commission is out there in different regions of the state. I've said before, and I'll say again, I'm hopeful that we can meet out in Dickinson, out in Medora, out in Pembina, out in, other places that maybe not are just necessarily the only regional centers, because there may be other constituents who can't make it to Grand Forks to go see something. And so maybe in a future Ethics Commission world, if we have the ability to do so, then we balance where we have town halls versus having full-blown meetings, so as not to saturate Fargo over and over. Not that being in Fargo is a bad thing, mind you, just thinking about how to balance that. It's a big state. There's a lot of people, and they're in more than just Fargo, Minot, Bismarck, Grand Forks, for example. I yield.
okay. Continue.
Yep. Moving on. So Commissioner Western, your comment about travel will come up in our next section. So when we talk about administering meetings, town halls, education, this includes the commissioner's salary, which you will see here. This is a significant difference. Now, I'll have Addie rerun these numbers, or Connor, and this will reduce by quite a bit. But this last legislative session, we requested 44,000 in commissioner salaries. And so you will see this is currently at roughly, I'm going to call it 100,000 because we'll lose some out both in 2027 and then fiscal year 28 and fiscal year 29. I also want to point out one other thing on this is that we have included legislative meetings for commissioners for the 2029 legislative session. I know that is a really long ways away, but we did end up paying then Commissioner Sogsveen when he was up meeting with legislators pursuant to the policy and the statute, and we had never budgeted for that. So we did include that. We included 2 commissioners with a total of 8 days. So that's actually, I feel like that's pretty minimal in the grand scheme of an entire 60-day legislative session. Sorry, 90 days. Thank you. Okay, moving on. The next topic, or the next thing that is included in cost to administer meetings, town halls, and educational is commissioner and staff travel. We reviewed this during, I believe it was the March meeting. And so this gets to the travel costs associated with meetings. And so you will see what we did. And Mark, this goes to your point. And I would like commissioner feedback in this, is we also, I would say, overestimated on these to include 5 commissioners and 6 staff. Now, this staff travel will be removed from this request and put in the request or the decision package with the FTE. So this will be cut out and separated. So this will be changed to current staff, and then for the future staff, that will be put in the decision package with that particular FTE. So those two things will stay combined. But this is our chart for calculating that. And this is our regular meetings. This is assuming an in-person meeting 4 times per year. And this is the travel that we have averaged associated with that. You will see what we did is we actually took this times 5, where all 5 commissioners are traveling. That has not happened. For instance, today we have 2 commissioners who are not traveling. When we were in Fargo, we had 1 commissioner that was not traveling. So this is a little bit of an overestimation, I would call it. We did that same thing for special meetings. We will adjust the travel for town halls accordingly for this. But the question that I have is, I kept it at 5 because we don't know where the next commissioner is going to be. We can't necessarily predict that, so I felt that that was the safest. I also do believe that this may be a little bit of an overestimation, so I'd like to get feedback from the commission on that number. But ultimately, these salaries and these travel expenses that we have broke up for 28 and 29 would also be included in this particular package. So if we look at this the cost, the commissioner salary cost, commissioner and staff travel to do the meetings, the town halls, attend COGL, that is an additional cost of $145,000 that will be reduced a little bit, but we've also already offset that with the ongoing or what we will continue to have appropriated in those particular areas. So we've really combined this into one to present it in a more easy translatable format, but we have the numbers behind it.
I think the slight overestimate for commissioner travel, like where you have all 5 of us traveling, makes sense. You could, if we were really in a crunch, you could maybe lower that to 4 and you'd probably still be conservative. The other question that I have is with staff travel, if we're projecting 6 staff members, do we need 6 staff members at a offsite meeting? We could probably get away with 3 or 2 even. So that would be where I would trim from first. If we're projecting to have 6 staff, you could cut that in half. In light of Mark's comment about if we go to Pembina, everyone's going to be doing some travel. So I think the overestimate there is probably smart. I personally would leave that and update the staff travel.
So reducing to 3, perhaps?
I think so.
Yeah, I agree.
I want to be clear, when we first put these numbers together, we just included everything, knowing that we can pull it back as exactly what we're doing. I would say the same thing would be true for COGL. If you look at our COGL travel, which is up there, I did include all commissioners and all staff, mostly because if we have new staff, we're going to want them to be going to COGL. And a lot of teams, ethics commissions, send their entire staff to COGL. Now, that doesn't mean that Logan and I, who have been there before, need to go every year. Although I did just get an email to present at COGL again. So, not on something that I know anything about, though.
And didn't we discuss about all commissioners going? And that maybe we could cut it. I thought we had that discussion that maybe we could limit it to 2 or 3. And somewhere along the budget discussion, I thought.
For instance, for the upcoming COGL, I went last time, so I would sit back and I would want especially the new commissioners to go, before me. So we don't all have to go every year. Although it sounds like Rebecca has to go every year. And I mean, that would be good to go every year. You should.
Well, I respectfully declined the,
Oh,
the request.
presentation.
Yes. So if we were to go to 3 commissioners,
I was going to suggest 3 commissioners, and what do you have on there for staff members? 6.
so I have 6, and keep in mind, it would actually be 3 in this particular decision package. But the other, if we'd add, for every staff member we'd add in that decision, or in every FTE, we would include that COGL. I think that we will get a sense for COGL over time, and decide if we need to continue going. But I know many ethics commissions send their whole staff almost they sometimes leave one person back to man the office, and then everybody goes. I think that's a pretty common thing. I don't know if it's necessary. And in pre-legislative years like this year, right, when we're going into legislative session, for both Logan and I to take 4 days to go is just not realistic based on our legislative schedules. Do you think that's accurate?
I think it's accurate. And then from my perspective as a staff member, I went in 2023 and then I went again in 2025. And a lot of the information for my role specifically was the same. So I don't think maybe every 3rd year for my role or something like that, I don't think I need to go every year, and would agree with Commissioner Sharp on that point.
It is a good vehicle though for bonding and really getting that big overview of really what you're trying to do at the state or local level. You know, it just, yeah, because I really did enjoy it, and I wanted to go back. So, and maybe I would have done it this year, but yeah. But no, I think these are all good considerations. So you've got enough direction here?
I believe so. I'll reduce that to 3 or 4.
I was going to say 3.
Jared, you and I are same numbers. Let's go 3. So 3 and 3. Okay, so moving on, we have decision package 6, which is the case management system. We're awaiting final costs. That's going to be what it is. I'm going to have more information in July on that. And then the independent audit, also we'll get those numbers from the Office of the Auditor. There is one thing that is not included on this, and that is rent. So if we in fact move into a larger space to accommodate the staff, then we will have an increased rent cost as well. I have had conversations with Brandon Solberg about that request, and he is working and seeing where he could potentially put us and then what the rent would be so that we can have estimates. So I don't have any update on that, but I anticipate that that would be likely a decision package in and of itself. I'm looking at Commissioner Sharp for confirmation. Yeah.
And you mean for a new space or additional space?
Additional space. They may end up having to move us to a new space. They are trying to, what I communicated with OMB is to keeping us in the J wing because it gives us that separation. We don't oversee a whole lot of, DHHS is in the J wing, but most of it, we don't oversee individuals in that. So it creates a little bit of space, but makes us publicly accessible.
And the audit, is that a financial audit or a program?
It's actually a program or performance audit. The auditor's office will continue to do the financial audit, but this is going to be them auditing whether we are meeting our benchmarks and our statutorily required timelines for complaints, advisory opinions, et cetera. And that creates auditing conflicts of interest for them. So both of our offices are on the same page on this one.
So where are we?
So with that, I wanted to really have a discussion on these individual decision packages. If anybody wants to move anything around, take something out, potentially combine something, et cetera. This was our rough draft of decision packages. At this point, I have gotten direction from the commission. I do not want a motion, anything beyond what was made at the April meeting until we have better numbers, because right now I don't feel as though these are accurate enough to have a motion.
Okay, so you're okay with going forward and now,
Yep, unless anybody, any of the commissioners have any additional things that they'd want me to consider as we're working through the budget projections and requests.
I've got questions only in terms of process. The expectation is then that next month, then we will vote on submitting the proposed budget request onto OMB. Fair?
That is correct, yes.
And in so doing, then is it, here's what I don't understand. We've discussed the whole issue of various FTEs, and we've discussed the issue of a 3% cut, or at least it's there in the proposal. Do we send multiple tiers to OMB? And maybe, again, this is just my lack of familiarity with how this process works, but could you help me understand that? I know that's not substantive input as to the budget itself, but just trying to, again, think through the process.
I'll try to answer that. Although,
Sure.
remember, I haven't been in the budget office for a few years. So what we'll have to do is submit our base budget, and all of the extra stuff that we just talked about, they are optional packages, and that's why they're prioritized. And then OMB, as well as the legislature, can look at those different packages and determine if they want to add them in to our regular budget. So that's why we need to keep them separated, because they may or may not choose all of them or some of them. So yeah, so it's a base budget plus options.
All right. Thank you.
all right. So that concludes our discussion.
Mhm. Thank you, commissioners. I got good direction.
All right. All right, commissioners, it's 12 o'clock. Do we want to take a lunch break? Do we want to keep going?
I'd like to take a lunch break.
Okay, 30 minutes?
Well, and I'll ask this question. Is there any benefit to plowing through a couple of the topics that do not require going into executive session to get them off the plate, so to speak, or would we rather just recess at this time?
Are you okay, Ron, with hanging in for a few more minutes and try to
Sure.
get through a couple more things?
Sure, that's fine.
Right. So. All right, let's move on then to proposed general administration roles. Okay. Update on commissioner appointment process.
The selection committee met on May 14th, and they reviewed applicants at the meeting. Commissioner Western was reappointed, so we are all very excited about that. To a full 4-year term. There was also some discussion about whether it was a 3-year, 4-year, et cetera, but it is a full 4-year term. So that will commence on August 1st. Having that kind of checked off the commission's to-do list is a good thing. Now the selection committee is moved on and narrowed the field from 18 applicants to 6 applicants to fill the remainder of Chair Lindquist's term. So they have narrowed that down 18 to 6. You will see the overview that I provided in the memo. And then they are sending out questions to these individuals. And on May 22nd, the responses are due back. The selection committee will then meet from there with the idea that hopefully before the commission's June meeting, they have somebody appointed. Any questions? Again, just for the, oh, thank you. Really not an expert. Just for the public's information, the commission is not involved in this process. Or part of we just provide logistical support. That's it, Chair Lindquist.
Okay. Next item, standard operating procedure. So we've got a draft under attachment 6. We kind of started some discussion on this last meeting.
I'm pulling it up. Oh. Sorry. All right, so just you can see the track changes are on in this document. These edits were made based upon the conversation and the discussion at the April meeting that we added. I believe that this was Commissioner Western's suggestion that the standard operating procedure does not apply to communications with the media. And that procedure is outlined in the commission's media relations policy, so clarifying that. And then there was the question of unplanned meetings. And then Chair Lindquist noted that it should be that the executive director and not staff be notified. So that change was made. And then it has what I phrased as an unplanned meeting. I was trying to pick neutral language when it came to that. I had the word spontaneous, but that sounded kind of weird. So I went unplanned. Anyway, those are the changes that happened. And then the other change that was made on the operating procedure was that clarifying that the brief summary should not include any confidential or exempt information and should summarize the conversation basically only at a general level. The brief summary should not serve as a detailed account of the meeting. This came with the concern that perhaps if it becomes a public record and individuals would then request it or have access to confidential or exempt information. Yes.
I think I have only maybe one question. This contemplates meeting requests or communications with external stakeholders. In trying to define the term external stakeholder, does that mean essentially every member of the public, i.e., going to present at a school, going to the so-and-so Lions Club, et cetera, et cetera? I assume the answer is yes, but I'm just trying to think through the word stakeholder. I yield.
Well, I'd like to know really how far this should go. As an example, this past weekend, I went to Bismarck and I went to a graduation party. Sorry, my throat is a little scratchy today. I went to a graduation party and, I got, are you still on the Ethics Commission? Yes. And what do you do? What kind of cases do you handle and this type of thing? And of course, I was pretty circumspect about what I said, but would you like to be notified in that case too?
Commissioner Goodman, I don't believe that is the intent of the policy, if I'm correct, and perhaps we need to clarify that. I don't think that I would want, I mean, I know the number of times I'm asked about the commission's work and just in a casual setting with every attorney that we encounter, et cetera. Or, at the end of the day when my husband says, hey, how was your day? Right? What'd you do today? That sort of thing. So I think that's why we are having this discussion.
Okay.
It does say in their capacity as a member of the commission. That helps a little bit.
I don't think this is intended for having to essentially put in a CRM every time somebody stops you at the grocery store, or you're at a basketball game, or at a choir concert or something. I suspect that this is contemplated for when there are formal requests to provide information. Other than, I would suspect that any person who is a part of the so-called regulated community who wants to discuss an issue or a concept, that's part of what this is about. Would that be fair?
Yeah, Mark, to me, I think the word request is in the title of the SOP, and then it also lines out in our capacity as members of the commission. So if there's a desire to have a further definition of stakeholders, that's fine with me, but I'm honestly fine with this SOP as it's written now.
Yeah, and for me, it helps clarify our role, and that there's consensus among ourselves as commissioners that we know how we operate. And now here's we're gonna, codify it or put it here in writing so the public understands how we operate. Any more comments or discussion on the draft? So I guess we'll entertain a motion to adopt the standard operating procedures for meeting requests.
I'll make that motion.
Motion
I'll
by Jared,
second. I'll
second by Ron. Any further discussion or questions or comments? Hearing none. Addie, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Sharp, Commissioner Hubrights,
Aye.
Commissioner Western,
Aye.
Vice Chair Goodman,
Aye.
and Chair Lindquist.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. All right. Next item on our agenda.
So as the commission is aware, I provided you the court's order, but we were dismissed from the federal litigation that was filed by Citizens Alliance and Mr. Brandon Pritchard. The commission was dismissed. Executive Director Binstock was dismissed in her official capacity. The Attorney General was also dismissed. The court did not grant state's attorney lawyer's motion to dismiss. So we're keeping an eye on it just from that perspective that we were involved in it. We want to keep an eye on where things end up. She did recently file a notice of an interlocutory appeal to the Court of Appeals for the 8th Circuit. So we'll keep an eye on where that appeal goes. But for now, we're out of the litigation, which is good news. So. If you have any questions, let me know, but we've been dismissed.
Appreciate the update and the information. Thank you. All right, we got a few more items done. It is 12:11 p.m. and we will recess for 30 minutes for a lunch break. And maybe we should note when we return in 30 minutes, we have, let's see, 3, 4, 5 items. And most of those items are regarding our work and complaints in that. And eventually we're going to be going into exec session at some time, but we will recess for 30 minutes. Thank you. We are back in open session for the North Dakota Ethics Commission. And we are at agenda item number 8, advisory opinion requests. And I've got.
We have to do.
Okay, I missed one. We got to go back up to the agenda on item G on our agenda. The discussion of the Attorney General letter opinion 25-L-03. Hogan or?
Madam Chair, I move that we enter executive session pursuant to North Dakota Century Code sections 44-04-19.1 and 44-04-19.2 for the purposes of attorney consultation regarding actions available to the Commission relating to Attorney General Opinion 25-L03 and on the legal risks, strengths, and weaknesses of proposed actions of the Commission regarding Attorney General Letter Opinion 25-L-03, which, if held in public, would have an adverse fiscal effect on the Commission.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further questions or discussion? We'll have Addie call. Ask Addie to call the roll, please, for the motion.
Commissioner Sharp, Commissioner Hubrights, Commissioner Western,
Aye.
Vice Chair Goodman,
Aye.
and Chair Lindquist.
Aye. Motion carried. We will enter into executive session. The Commission has adopted a motion to enter executive session for discussion of an agenda item. Discussion on Citizens Alliance of North Dakota v. Wrigley 8L. That one. Okay, excuse me. I had the wrong script for what I'm supposed to be reading.
Nope, it's your.
Thank you.
Not back yet?
Yeah, we are.
All right, the Commission has approved a motion to enter into executive session for the purpose of attorney consultation regarding Attorney General Letter Opinion 25-L-03. The legal authority for closing this portion of the meeting is North Dakota Century Code sections 44-04-19.1 and 44-04-19.2. The executive session will be recorded, and all members of the governing body are reminded to limit their discussion to the announced topic. Any collective decision, collective commitment, or other final action by the governing body must occur after it reconvenes in an open meeting. The prohibition of taking final action during the executive session does not apply to providing guidance or instructions to our attorney. We all now ask members of the public who are attending the meeting to leave. We anticipate adjourning the executive session and reconvening the open portion of this meeting at approximately 1:30 p.m. The minutes will show that the executive session began at approximately 1:02 p.m. here on Wednesday, May 20th, and was attended by all 5 North Dakota Ethics Commission commissioners and staff. That's all. We will go into executive session. The minutes will show that the executive session was adjourned at approximately 1:34 p.m. The public has been invited to return to the meeting. We are now back in open session for the North Dakota Ethics Commission. There were no actions from our executive session, so we will continue on with our agenda, which is now item number 8, advisory opinion request 26-03, 26-05, 26-06, 26-07, and 26-08.
Chair Linquist, I can take the discussion of those, or just to provide the background information. The commission's aware of 3 of these advisory opinion requests. The first one, 2603 from the North Dakota Library Association. We asked for an extension to allow our new interns an opportunity to work on that. They agreed to that, so that one's due September 1st. 2605, this was from a legislator and it relates to a potential conflict of interest situation, I believe serving on a board, dual service type situation. Chair Linquist and Rebecca met and determined they would issue the opinion, so we're working on that one. 2606, this one is interesting because we don't believe that the request is probably still active. It relates to an out-of-state event that a legislator was invited on. We reached out to the sponsor for more information, and they said, yeah, we invited some people from North Dakota, but what did they say? We're oversubscribed on the trip. So we're not sure if this legislator still has an open invitation or not. So we're waiting to hear back. We'll probably reach out to the legislator too, but the sponsor was going to follow up with us. So this one may go away because it's not an active issue unless they try to turn it into a hypothetical situation. So then maybe we still might move forward with it. So we put a pin in that one for now. If we do need it, we might have him resubmit the request to as a hypothetical situation. But if he's still planning to go or he still has an invitation to go, this one's due before our June meeting. So we'd probably need a special meeting to approve it in early June, most likely. Any questions on that? That one's kind of an odd one, but we'll keep you updated. 2607, this is a new one from a legislator. It relates to an out-of-state event, but it's an organization that's sponsoring it that's affiliated with CSG, which is an organization, the Council of State Governments. Is that correct? Yeah, that Legislative Council pays dues to. So it's not necessarily sponsored by the organization itself because there's state money going to that organization. So it relates to questions that the commission gets pretty often where legislators travel to these organizations, legislative council pays dues to, and whether that triggers a different analysis from the organizations that just invite public officials and offer to pay for it because the money's tied to different sources. So this one should be an interesting one. We did let legislative council know that we received it and would probably be working with them to get information from them. Chair Linquist and Rebecca met and determined that we should issue it just so legislators have good information on those types of trips, particularly in consideration of the travel rules, which will go into effect on July 1st. So this one's not due till later this summer, but I believe the event is in early August. So we're aiming for July meeting as the deadline for that one. And then the last one is 2608. This one is from the Association of Soil Conservation Districts, and it relates to an annual convention they have during the organizational session in December. This one's due in August, but it's about providing food and other things at the event. So we have some time to work on this one, but it will be probably on the August agenda, I believe, based on when it was submitted. And the chair and the executive director did meet and said we would issue that one as well. Any questions on any of them?
The the one where you said, the one where we're not sure that it's still continuing, and you talked about a special meeting, could we combine that, put that on the agenda with any of our other ones?
We likely could run if we have a special meeting before then. I'm like 85% sure that this one's not gonna go away in the meantime. I just need to confirm that. But yes, if there's
Okay.
something on the agenda, we'll look forward for that.
All right.
All right, any other questions or comments? Hearing none, we will move on to item 9 on our agenda, discussion of legislator travel inquiry.
Chair Lindquist, do you want me to run down the factual background of this?
Yes, please.
So on May 3rd, which was a little over 2 weeks ago, our office received an inquiry from a legislator. Actually, and it was forwarded from a legislator to us from the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, commonly referred to as AIPAC, regarding a trip the legislator was invited on. It appears the trip will be funded through AIPAC's 501c3 foundation, which is called the American Israel Education Foundation. You can find them online. They have a website. The email provides no details about what the trip entails. All we know is that it is being funded through AIEF, but the actual request to the legislator, I want to be really clear, came from AIPAC. So that is a bit of a nuance, I guess, to the situation. The email specifically that was forwarded to us does not ask for an advisory opinion. It specifically says we do not want an advisory opinion, but instead asks for an email from the commission that says the analysis and advisory opinion 2504, which was the commission's advisory opinion regarding a trip to Israel, applies to us. Now, I am assuming that us refers to AIPAC, but it could also refer to AIEF. It's not clear based on the context. So really, I responded to the legislator and said, this is received. I actually asked to push it off to our next week's worth of work because we were full that week. And then after Logan and I had a chance to sit down and discuss, we wanted to bring it to the commission. And really, it is not a request for an advisory opinion. We're not entirely sure what they're asking. So you will see what Logan has in the memo here as far as advice. But I do need to get back to the legislator. I did inform the legislator that we were going to be talking about it at the meeting today. So Logan, I'm gonna let you take over on the legal stuff.
Yeah, I'm gonna add to that because one, we don't have any details really of this trip other than who's funding it. We don't even know where it is. We assume it's to Israel because they reference the previous advisory opinion that was given to a legislator regarding a trip funded by the consulate of Israel, so the Israeli government. We don't know where it is. We know who's funding it. That's about it. But it's a sticky question because if you're not asking for a formal advisory opinion, the protections that come with a formal advisory opinion wouldn't attach to them. So I'm not sure why they're asking it in this way because an email is not an advisory opinion. So that's the one issue. But also then the commission gets into a sticky situation where we're providing email advice to a legislator and a large organization or two organizations that may come back to haunt the commission in one way or another because we provided an email. So I have that concern as well. And then third, as an attorney, to me, this is, well, you're asking for analysis of the law. You should take that to your private attorney to ask for a legal advice from your attorney, not a government organization. And I think it kind of leads to an outcome of, well, the direction that we give people when they call with questions like this is you need to go consult an attorney, or we have the formalized advisory opinion process. And I lean towards saying that to this legislator, that that's all we can really do in this situation, but we wanted to bring it to your attention given that it references a previous advisory opinion and they're asking for an email from the commission. So that's why it's on the agenda.
I want to provide just one other piece of maybe clarifying or important information. There are many times that the commission does answer questions. People will call and have questions. Those questions that we answer are, where do I find the rule? What rule should I be looking at? Not, where can I find a form? Those sorts of simple questions that we are directing people to information. That is a very common thing that our office does. Addie is excellent at doing that. This specific one, if you look at the language, it is asking that whether the analysis applies to us. It is a very different type of request. So we're asking as staff direction from the commission, and it specifically requests an email from the commission, hence why we brought it to you guys.
I suggest that you make contact with them and ask them specifically these questions that Logan brought up. Where is the meeting? Who's paying for it? Or do we know who's paying for it?
That seems to be the only detail that we do know, because they confirmed it's affiliated with APEC, but it's actually the American Israel Education Foundation that would be paying for it.
Okay, just generally with the legal questions you're bringing up, talk to them and see where it is. Is this the one you said might go away, or was that another one?
That was a different one.
Okay. And then we have time to answer them in June, don't we?
So Ron, this that didn't come in as a formal request for an advisory opinion. So that's
Right.
where we're kind of left. We don't know what to do with it. I mean, they could formalize it and make that request as an advisory opinion, but they haven't done that. They're asking for something less than that, which I don't completely understand why. They did reference that they don't want to create more work for the commission, but that's our standard operating procedure, that if you want the commission's guidance on an issue, it comes in as an advisory opinion request.
Mm-hmm. No, I think just contact them, see what they say, and then we'll go from there. We need more information.
Was there question that does the analysis of a previous advisory
Yeah, that's
apply to their situation?
that's exactly what they're asking.
That
They
is-
want us to
And we don't really know
confirm,
what their whole situation is.
they're asking us to confirm that the legal analysis and that's 2504, applies to this situation. So can't you just say no?
We can, but we
We
want
don't know.
the
it.
direction from the commission that,
No.
Right.
well, we could say,
that, or no, because 1, 2, 3, 4, we don't know this, and this, but
yes.
even asking 1, 2, and 3 questions sets us up to, it does,
That analysis applied to the question posed in advisory opinion 2504. And we don't know that this is an identical
We don't know all.
question.
We don't know
Yeah.
what this situation.
I agree with that discussion, namely because one deals with a foreign government and one deals with an American entity that supports that particular country. So like it's a difference just from the get-go. Plus, we don't have any details of the event or the trip.
I'm just suggesting that we say something to the effect of, based on the information you've given us, we're not able to make that determination. due to lack of facts, information.
Would you want us to direct them to the formal process for requesting an advisory opinion? Because then we could actually analyze it like we do every other request that we receive. Or no, like,
I don't know.
I mean, I think the two options in the memo, Logan, are advisory opinion or have your attorney take a look. You know, I mean, we could give them some reasoning, but I don't think we're in a position to.
generally, when we get inquiries that come to us as staff, we don't provide much reasoning other than we work for the commission. We're not your attorney. Go consult a private attorney if you need legal advice, because that's, as attorneys, that's our professional responsibility to do that. So I think it gets a little more murky if we're saying, well, we don't have enough details. We're kind of analyzing it, but not. I'd feel more comfortable if the commission would just say, we can't analyze it unless you follow the proper protocols, but also they're requesting it of the commission, not me as your counsel or Rebecca as the executive director.
Yeah, I guess
I think
my
that
answer. Go ahead, Mark.
all I was going to say is the way I would frame a letter is that we're not able to answer this question as it's not a request for an advisory opinion. If you want to request an advisory opinion, the commission may consider your request. And I mean, because even if they do, that doesn't mean that we're obligated to provide a response.
Okay, we'll take that direction if
Everybody
everybody's
else is
nodding,
comfortable with
so.
that?
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Stupid son.
Okay, item 10. Discussion on receipt of information containing evidence of ethics violations.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that we enter executive session pursuant to North Dakota Century Code sections 44-04-19.1 and 44-04-19.2 for the purpose of attorney consultation regarding actions available to the commission relating to the receipt of information containing evidence of ethics violations and on the legal risks, strengths, and weaknesses of proposed actions of the commission regarding the information which, if held in public, would have an adverse fiscal effect on the commission.
We have a
Second,
motion and a second by Mark. Thank you. Further discussion or questions? Hearing none. Addie, you want to call the roll, please?
Commissioner Sharp, Commissioner Hubrights, Commissioner Westron,
aye.
Vice Chair Goodman,
Aye.
and Chair Lindquist.
Aye. Motion passes. We will go into exec session as soon as I find my right script. The commission has approved a motion to enter executive session for the purpose of attorney consultation regarding receipt of information containing evidence of ethics violation. The legal authority for closing this portion of the meeting is North Dakota Century Code sections 44-04-19.1 and 44-04-19.2. The executive session will be recorded and all members of the governing body are reminded to limit their discussion to the announced topic. Any collective decision, collective commitment, or other final action by the governing body must occur after it reconvenes in an open meeting. Prohibition on taking any final action during the executive session does not apply to providing guidance or instructions to our attorney. We'll now ask members of the public who are attending the meeting to leave. We anticipate adjourning the executive session and reconvening the open portion of the meeting at approximately 2:30 p.m. The minutes will show that the executive session began at approximately 1:55 p.m. and was attended by the 5 ethics commissioners and our staff. We will now enter into executive session. Public will leave. Thank you. Minutes will show that the executive session was adjourned at approximately 2:44 p.m. The public has been invited to return to the meeting. We are now back in open session for the North Dakota Ethics Commission. I will entertain any motions.
Madam Chair, I move that commission staff take action as directed during the executive session.
We have a motion. Further questions or discussion? Hearing none, Addie, please call the roll.
We need a second. Don't we?
Pam second.
And it,
Oh, I
Pam
didn't hear.
seconded.
I
Yep,
didn't hear
sorry.
Pam. Okay.
Commissioner Sharp,
aye.
Commissioner Hubright,
Aye.
Commissioner Western,
Abstain.
Vice Chair Goodman,
Aye.
and Chair Lindquist.
Aye. Motion carries or passes. Thank you. Ron, how are you doing? Do you need a break?
No, we have one more executive session to go through, right?
Yep, yep.
Yeah, I'm fine.
All right.
I'll leave if I have to and come back.
All right. We are now on item 11, if I'm following our agenda properly. Discussion. I'm hoping I've got the right memo of complaint numbers 2314, 24008, 24-013, 24-015, 24-013, 24-032, 24-035, 25-004, 25-021, 25-022, 25-038, 25-039, 25-047, 25-048, 25-049, 25-050, 25-051, 25-052, 25-053, 25-054, 25-055, 25-056, 25-057, 25-060, 25-061, 25-062, 25-068, 26-018, 26-019, and 26-020. These items must be discussed in executive session. The legal authority for closing this portion of the meeting is North Dakota Century Code Section 2054-66-12.1, 54-66-12.3, and 44-04-19.2 sub 1. The topic or purpose of this executive session is discussion on the complaints. Information regarding the content and parties to the Ethics Commission complaint is confidential. As a complaint must be discussed in executive session, no motion is needed to enter into executive session. The executive session will be recorded, and all members of the governing body are reminded to limit their discussions during the exec session to the announced topic. Any collective decision, collective commitment, or other final action by the governing body must occur after it reconvenes an open meeting. Prohibition on taking final action during the executive session does not apply to providing guidance or instruction to our attorney. We will now ask members of the public who are attending the meeting to leave the meeting. We anticipate adjourning the exec session and reconvening the open portion of the meeting at approximately 3:30 p.m. The minutes will show that the exec session began at approximately 2:56 p.m. and was attended by all 5 commissioners and commission staff. We are going back to exec session. The minutes will show that the executive session was adjourned at approximately 3:15 p.m. The public has been invited to return to the meeting. We are now back in open session. At this time, I will entertain any motions.
Madam Chair, this is Ron Goodman. I will move to dismiss complaint 24-32. I am not sure of the status of that as to why we are moving to dismiss, because I've forgotten.
Ron, that one's a closure, not a dismiss. It's past that
Okay.
stage. So
Okay, I
Dis-
move that we close that case 24-32.
I second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, Addie, please call the roll.
Commissioner Sharp,
Aye.
Commissioner Hubrights,
Aye.
Commissioner Western,
Abstain.
Vice Chair Goodman,
Aye.
and Chair Lindquist.
Aye. Moving on, other motions.
Madam Chair, I move that we summarily dismiss complaint number 26-018 for lack of subject matter jurisdiction.
Second.
Further questions or comments? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Sharp,
Aye.
Commissioner Hubrights, Commissioner Western,
Aye.
Vice Chair Goodman,
Aye.
and Chair Lindquist.
Aye. And I believe our last motion.
I will move that we summarily dismiss cases 26-19 and 26-20 for lack of subject matter jurisdiction.
Second.
to clarify, that's personal jurisdiction, I believe. My notes say.
Personal jurisdiction. I missed that day in law school, so I get them mixed up.
And Mark, you're okay with that?
Second, yes.
Thank you. Motion on the floor. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Sharp,
Aye.
Commissioner Hubrights,
Aye.
Commissioner Western,
Aye.
Vice Chair Goodman,
Aye.
and Chair Lindquist.
Aye. Motion passes. Yay. We are now at our last item on the agenda. Item 12, Executive Director Annual Performance Evaluation. And I think I was supposed to have sent my colleagues, the other commissioners, some information. And I forgot to do it, so I apologize. And then Rebecca did put some notes in our memo regarding it, but what I was going to forward to you all was she had sent me an email regarding how we've handled the annual evaluation of our exec director the last couple of years, and especially when it transitioned from Paul Richard to Dave Anderson last year in that. And so she sent me that information, which I looked at, or the Word. Did Word do it? Word Kozer?
Sorry, no, Dave did last year at the May, because we do it at the May meeting.
meeting,
And we
okay.
had our May meeting
Okay.
before. he
It's the end
passed
of the
away.
day, and of course, my timeline is getting, okay. Anyway, what I went and did was I kind of followed what was done the last year. And so there's an evaluation form that we use. And I went ahead and did it by hand this morning. So commissioners, I apologize, I've not shared this with you, but I essentially just replicated what was on last year's. And there are, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sections. And then it's a scale from 1 to 5, with 5 being excellent in that. And last year's, they were all 5s. And I'm leaving and I'm like, oh, I don't know that people should be given 5s. But that's what we did last year. And because I'm leaving, I'm like, I'm not gonna give her less than a 5. So I've given her all 5s again, but I did add some new comments different from last year relative to goals, job-related strengths, and plans to strengthen the performance. And I'm happy to read what I've put down here. And like goals for the coming year, it was after a conversation with Rebecca. 2 goals: improving and scaling internal processes, standardize or create internal checks and balances. So it's really a more administrative focus on our operations, how we do things. And Rebecca suggested this. I didn't come up with it on my own. I'm like, okay, you want to do that? But it also ties in this. We've been trying to do this all along. She and the staff have been trying to do this all along also. Job-related strengths, and again, these are my comments. Excellent communicator, pays attention to the details, thoughtful researcher, and timely notices. It just, yeah, and I could go on and on, but it's like, keep it simple, keep it simple. Plans to strengthen performance. And again, after discussion with Rebecca, to try to have more emphasis or focus on long-term planning. And that can be interpreted in many different ways. I interpret it more specific to the continuity of our work and who we are, but including funding, fiduciary in that. So, and having that strategic plan to guide that. So makes here. I also put on here under plans to strengthen performance, self-care. And I think we all agree that we know we have really good staff, and I'm scared to death of burnout because of the work they carry, the workload they each carry. And with Rebecca as our exec director, she's kind of got to be the leader to show them it's okay to take some time off. And I mean, really take time off. Don't be taking that phone with you or your work numbers or, and that, because it's like, and that. So anyway, and I did sign this, so you'll all have to figure out how you want to do this, but it's kind of timely because we want to get this done before the end of the fiscal year in that. And so then the comments in in her memo to us is just to give you the other side of that administrative side, the salary side. So, but the other thing I'm going to say is I love our work. This piece of it, I do not like being public. I have no problem sharing somebody's evaluation, but in a different manner. And so conducting somebody's evaluation in a public setting to me is, I don't think it's
Doesn't feel right.
Yeah, it doesn't feel, like,
Yeah.
can we just have a really good exchange about how you're doing and what we're doing and where should we be going in that? So, but so be it. It's the way we work, and it's the way we've been working for 7 years. So, but just so that part's on the record. On the salary piece here, this gets just disappointing. And I'm like, oh, really? And I don't know that do we need to take action on this, Rebecca? I mean, I think we do because, yeah, explain it better than I'm trying to do here.
So I feel as though I have a conflict on providing advice on this. So I will give you the general information, but anything specifically, I'll refer over to Logan. But the commission, so how we do it is I notify HR of what the raises will be. I do that mid-June, effective July 1. So the reason we have to do this today is because before the next meeting, I'll need to have those notices out. So I will do that. So in order to provide evidence of those raises, I do a performance evaluation of the employees, and then I will need or there has to be a motion approving that by the commission for my salary. Anything beyond that, I direct to Logan.
But do we need to do that motion today? Probably, yeah.
When's the deadline for you to report that to HRMS?
We could wait until July. We could do it at a special
Are
meeting.
we doing, talking about the salary thing?
Mhm.
Here's what I think, if you don't mind. I think we need to just make a motion to approve the 2% salary increase for Rebecca, so it's on the record, and then it's approved and it's in our minutes, and we don't have to do anything else. And that's what you can take to, that's your documentation. That is a motion. I motion to make a motion to approve the 2% salary increase.
Does it have,
Rebecca.
probably really not following Robert's rules here on this, but can we make it more? Or do we have to stick with what's,
Oh, I'm sorry. That from what I read was it's the 2% is the legislatively authorized salary increase. We can do more, but we need to have some justification and discussions about that. And this probably wouldn't be a good time to do that particular, a
okay,
different type of increase.
okay.
But yes, we can do more. As long as we have the money in the budget and we can get it next year and that.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
All right, so there is a motion. We need a second.
Second.
And second. All right, now I guess, any questions or further discussion?
So Rebecca's yes, because she's an appointed individual, the legislative increase is a guide from previous discussions. So you can deviate from that whether you want to. That's subject to available funds to do that. So
Did anyone hear that? Hear my wife?
No?
No?
Okay, good. You didn't want to hear her. I have a medical appointment, so I've got to leave, but I will vote in favor of that motion.
you can call it
But
and
then
let it vote. if you
But
want
now
to.
I have to leave. She
Okay.
reminded me it's right now, so I will see you next month.
Thank you, Ron.
Yeah, bye.
Take care.
Bye to you and bye to Addie. Good luck. Bye.
All right, any further questions or comments? There is a motion on the floor.
And also, I will say that was the way I made the motion because that was what was indicated on that piece of paper that I read.
I'm open to discussing an increase on top of the 2% at a different time. But I just would like to approve the 2% to get that voted on now.
Okay. Hearing no further questions or comments, Addie, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Sharp,
Aye.
Commissioner Hubrights, Commissioner Westron,
Aye.
and Chair Lindquist.
Aye. Okay. And we are at the end of the agenda. North Dakota Ethics Commission adjourns. Thank you all so much. Good meeting.